Chris, I don't know what your stance on alcohol is right now, but I had to break out some White Claws for this celebration right now because people.
My stance right now is yes, please.
Yes. That's why I knew it was great to bring you back. People, we got Jeff Bryan back from Survivor for our 200 and for our 200 subscriber podcast celebration. Hell,
200. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
good for you guys. I'm happy for you guys. That's amazing. That's a lot of podcasts.
Yeah,
in a short time.
Man.
Yeah,
we're well, it's just this community of ours that we've that sort of found us over the this past year. We've spoken a lot about, like, we hate saying it, we got something awesome out of it, which is this community of people who tune into our live chats each week. And so Stranger Boy in the chat right now, dude, thank you, you're a big part of this. And so we had to come on and celebrate with you because hey man, this is just what we do. You guys gave us so much this year, and we're happy to just have an amazing show tonight, guys. Like Dom said, we have Jeffrey Bryan joining us yet again from the band Survivor and the movie Karate Kid. Jeff, dude, how have you been, man?
I'm still alive, which, on normal cases, that would be like a funny thing to say, but literally I'm still alive. So that's good.
Thank God.
I have to ask that these days. Are you still alive?
Totally, man. Well, hey, it seems like there's some hope on the horizon, hopefully, and so that's what I'm hanging on to. I'm here to have a good time tonight, and guys, I think we have a really good show for you. So sit back, strap in. We're going to be going for a little while tonight. We're going to get into all sorts of stuff. So Dom, dude, why don't you take this one and start us off right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, first off, thanks to everyone who got us to 200 subscribers. We were literally just like I think it was, I'm going to level with you guys a little bit. So we were at like 196 like yesterday, and I texted a couple people. It's like, hey, do you know that we have a new channel? And they were like, yeah, cool, I'll subscribe. And they just like hopped on really quick, and we're awesome that way. And so that was just cool. Like Chris, what? We're at month 10 of doing this. 200 subscribers in 10 months. That's insane. Like I never hit that on my old. I never could have hoped to hit that. Like I'm still only at 170 on my old channel, which is 4 years old. So put that in perspective. But yeah, like I came into tonight with no agenda other than to potentially talk to Jeff about more of Karate Kid and hopefully a lot of Dune. Because, oh my God, you just like opened the floodgates as far as that goes. The last time you went into that, so I'm definitely hoping to get more into that and just like get more.
We got to do that. We got to.
Oh yeah, just get like kind of get a glimpse of more of like what the '80s vibe was like, especially since that's made such a comeback now. I also, Chris, if it's possible, I wanted to kind of pick your brain because people, I'm gonna level with you guys. So Chris, as you guys know, as he's told you guys 1.5 million times in this podcast, is a singer-songwriter first and foremost, and Chris has. He's been fooling around. He's been getting into some new funky tracks, and I was definitely hoping that he was he's been fortunate enough to share that with me, obviously, and I wanted to see if he would be confident enough, for lack of a better word, to share with the rest of the chat tonight. Because, oh man, Jeff, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to it, but this man right here, this man could throw down on a keyboard if he needs to.
I'm surprised he hasn't played for your show in the past.
Yo, right?
Pieces,
Well, I mean, he came up with this intro that we have, but.
Oh, that's you? I was rocking out to that, man.
Man, I've been rocking out to the last like 10 months that we've had it, but I definitely wanted because Chris, I mean, you've talked about this, but Chris, obviously we wanted to get into like composing some more live music for the channel just in general, just so we can avoid more copyright clauses if need be, because you never know. Totally. When the non-copyright music that you download from YouTube, someone's going to slam you with a copyright. You never know right now with modern day copyright clauses. But Chris, like I said, Chris is that strength when it comes to our duo, and he always delivers. He always delivers.
When we get to the Q&A section, I can
put him on the spot.
Yeah, right.
Hey, I'm lucky. I'll share something later when we get to the Q&A section. I'll show you guys where my writing's been at, I suppose. But before we jump into anything specific, everyone knows how Dom and I have been. Jeff, dude, how have you been? It's been a few months since we last spoke to you.
Yeah, doing fine. I mean, things are slow, I mean, they're not normally I would have gigs. Well, what is it, January? I'd be looking through an itinerary right now normally on where I'd be going this year with Survivor and my other bands. The funny thing is last night I did play a show at the Canyon Club in Agora, which is, if you're from California, you probably know what that is. It's a big venue. And it was a streaming show, which was a tribute to Robert Plant and all Robert Plant music, not Zeppelin, just all the stuff he did in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
great band, great group of players, and that's streaming live, so that was cool. That was the first live show I did. It needed 3 lives. I had to say live.
You needed to increase
Oh,
the
that's
dramatic effect there.
Right. It wasn't just live. It was live. I mean live.
That's
So,
awesome, man. Yeah, Fate of
that was-
Nations is it's a
Oh.
great record. I don't know too much of his solo stuff, but I do know that record pretty thoroughly. Both the folks
Yeah.
are obviously Zeppelin fans, and so they got a little bit of that trickle into the Plant solo
Yeah.
stuff, and it's just
Yeah.
as badass in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and Zen and Now, that album, Jimmy Page did a cameo on that record, and there's so many great. It's amazing songs. His. I mean, we don't have to talk about Robert Plant, but it's just when you dig through his discography, this man has left more than just Zeppelin in this world. I mean, if it was just his 9 albums he did without Zeppelin,
9. This man
I
did
know, right?
9 albums on the side, and we're like, wow.
I know. And and I'm excited when I play a gig. This guy's had 30 years of albums that he's put out. It's amazing, just amazing. Anyway,
Yeah, I always love that. Whenever you see whenever you get like a giant artist and you see you've got all their popular big hits that everyone knows about, and then you go into like their itinerary, and then you see they've got like 300 other just work that they've done just like on their own, like either that has been completed or just hasn't, just that they've just them fooling around.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's actually
another band. Sorry, Dom. Another band that my favorite band of all time, AC/DC, put out an incredible record this year. Did you hear that one, Jeff?
Yeah, of course. I haven't listened to it actually, but yeah, I know. I knew all about it. Yeah,
it's
amazing.
It's like they never missed a beat. They could have been a B-side record with the way that his voice still sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, isn't that almost? It's almost scary.
It really is.
I heard like a little outtake of it. I haven't listened to the record, but I've heard a couple pieces from it, and I'm like, that's AC/DC. Holy crap.
Pretty crazy, right? Yeah, it's funny because all of this, like, kind of the conversion, right? It reminds me of a movie that came out a couple of years ago. So, Jeff, obviously, you being still a gigantic fan of film, in addition to being the incredible musician that you are, obviously, I would say you're a fan of Orson Welles. You've probably seen Citizen Kane, right?
Sure, but don't quote me on anything. It's been a long
That's fine.
time.
I was about to say, don't worry. So, were you aware of the fact that there was an incompleted Orson Welles film called The Other Side of the Wind that was completed, what's called by a team of editors in France, then placed on Netflix a couple of years ago? Were you aware of that?
I'm not the one that says movie nerd under my name. Okay.
I guess that's why. So no, but it's just funny because it's just the talk of like kind of former artists and like bringing like their previous art and making it available to like a whole new generation because of modern day technology. Just reminded me of that, because the interesting thing about Other Side of the Wind is Wells had like so many years of incomplete projects because he just had like weirdly enough, his career seemed to go downhill after Citizen Kane, his first movie. And so what happened was he had started filming this movie called The Other Side of the Wind, which starred John Huston and Peter Bogdanovich, and it was never finished. And then a couple of years ago, a team of editors in France got together and basically there was apparently enough reels to finish the movie. They didn't even need to shoot new footage or anything, and they just put it together. And it was a really, really fascinating experiment because it's like watching a movie that would have been made in like 1950s, 1960s, but in 2018 on Netflix. So it was really, really fascinating how that worked out, And I was just wondering, like, kind of, like I said, I'm not a musician first and foremost. I played music, but like I'm not a musician. So like whenever you two go hard into the terminology of that, I'm like, yeah. So I'm just the guy that's sitting on the sidelines right there. But like I was just wondering, like, just kind of how the translation works, and just like kind of the idea of like seeing something in the time when it's supposed to come out versus seeing something that comes out a couple years, decades later, and just being like how like the it's obviously going to be a different effect, even if the song is still great, obviously.
Well, I think what you're getting at is, you have the artwork itself, the actual work, which is, in a case of a movie, it's the script, it's the story, it's how that story is told. And sometimes when you're in an era, say the 60s or the 50s or the 90s or whatever, you see that story through those lenses. And I don't mean pun the lenses of the camera. I could, but I mean the lenses.
I was about to say, always go for a pun, even if it's not intentional.
That's right. Yeah, so they're all intentional. That's the bottom line.
Exactly.
But so you see, it's interesting because society, or wherever the race is at the moment, all of the people, as they watch that movie, it may still have the same words, the same story, but often it's told through a different, it can't be helped because it's coming through a different perspective, the perspective of that era. And so that in itself is something to explore, because if you watch, and it takes us right back to Karate Kid. This is perfect, man, because Karate Kid, if you remember, in the 80s, we didn't have the same PC that we have now, that political correctness, that what do they call it? Cancel society or whatever.
Cancel culture.
Culture, yeah.
Yep.
We had Culture Club, but not it's a totally different thing. But the point is that the point is that in the 80s they didn't protect people in the way that people think they're protecting them now. And so when you watch that movie, people that have not been exposed to that kind of mindset think, oh, that guy's an asshole. That guy, that can't be right. But at that time, we may have said, yeah, that guy's damn right. That's the way it should be. So, I mean, it's really the perspective in which you're seeing it changes the meaning of the movie. And it takes you back to that argument whether or not Ralph's character is a bad guy or a good guy. Well, it depends what era the person watching it from is looking at it from, that perspective. And so if you grow up with and I don't mean this to be derogatory, but a more coddled kind of upbringing, you may think that, I don't know, maybe Daniel is a bit elitist.
Yeah. Which is ironic considering the fact that Daniel was the scrappy poor kid from Newark, and that's why they hated him. And Johnny was the spoiled LA rich kid. And then now, obviously in modern day, things are reversed. So that's hilarious that you bring that up. That's the first point that to kind of bring us into Karate Kid right there.
Well, you did it because, I mean,
you're right.
Your point about that Orson Welles movie is exactly that. It's that, you can watch. I mean, if they took Citizen Kane and just took the script, took the story, but put new actors, new scenery, the new, up-to-date modern technology to create it, it would have a different feeling, because it's not just the way it looks, it's the people that are perceiving it.
Yep.
They're not perceiving it from a 1950s perspective because they don't live in the 1950s.
Right.
So the mores and all the ideals and everything else is just coming through a different lens. It's a different process. So you're going to see a different movie.
I think that's amazing that you bring that up, because the ironic thing about Citizen Kane specifically, forgetting other side of the win for a second, the ironic thing about Citizen Kane is that movie, despite the fact that it came out in 1941, is so ahead of its time that even though obviously the technicals for at the time, it's obviously a 40s movie, but I watched that and I'm like, wow, this is still scarily relevant today as far as kind of measuring what a man's life is worth versus kind of the outside perception of it. It's actually extremely ahead of its time as far as its statement on celebrity right there.
Yeah, that's exactly. But again, who's watching it?
Exactly.
Because as an artist, and Chris will probably, you could probably agree with this, as an artist, you write something and you put it out there, but that's only half the story. The other half is the audience and how they perceive it. How many times have you heard a famous artist say, well, I wrote this song, but everybody is so interested in it, and it has nothing to do with what they think it has to do with, you know? And a lot of that is because, again, I go back to my original conversation with you, probably 30 episodes ago at this point, maybe 100. I don't know.
It was only 15.
Well, okay, whatever. So it goes back to the point where, I lost my train of thought. Damn it.
I've been there. Don't worry.
Yeah. So who was paying attention? Oh yeah. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. I remember now. It's a conversation is all I'm trying to say. And artwork is a conversation. Everyone thinks that the artist is just sitting in his room and, working on piano parts or painting or whatever. That's really only half the story. The other half is when you present it to the world, then that conversation is now starting. And then how they perceive it, that's the rest of the story. So when it comes to films, it's a little weird because it's such a big event to create a movie. There's so many moving parts, the filming, the cinematography, the storyline, the script, everything else. But all those pieces, no matter what happens, is that it's still, you put it in front of an audience, and whatever that audience is taking in is coming back and is going to fill out the rest of what that conversation is supposed to be. So if that audience is in the 50s and the same movie is played in the 90s or 80s or now, you almost go, was that you might walk away, and if those two people were able to talk, the people from now and people from 40 years ago, they might say, did you watch the same movie?
Yeah,
You see what I'm
totally.
saying?
And that's no, you go.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Dom. It's kind of like how I feel growing up as a Bruce Springsteen fan. You know, when I was a little kid, I heard Born in the USA, and I wasn't politically minded. I wasn't really worldly. So I just thought, wow, this guy really loves America. Then I get to
Right.
high school, I take US history, and I start to question that song a little bit. But I don't have the world experience. I'm getting the knowledge now, but I don't have the world experience to go out there and sort of back up. Maybe my perspective of this song is changing. I'm still not sure. And now, 26, having gone to
Yeah.
college, having toured a few times, whatnot, experienced different places, different,
Right.
areas, and the way that they interact, I realized that this song is multi-layered. And so I totally see what you're trying
Yeah.
to say. It's like the
Yeah.
intent of that film resonates, I think, differently now than probably Orson Welles intended it when he was writing it for an audience in 1950.
And it's exactly good point. And it's exactly, there's nothing that you can do about that. And that's the beauty of being able to create something, is that you create it, you put it out in the world, and it's going to be, it has a life of its own, and there's nothing you can do about that. And it's no different than I would say, because I haven't raised a child, but I would assume that if you have a kid, you do your best to create good values and whatever, and then they go out in the world and they become what they become. That's the same thing with writing a song or writing a movie. It really depends on the people that are watching it.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. So there was another movie that came out recently. Again, don't worry, because this one I know for a fact nobody has seen outside me, because I was brave enough to actually go to a theater to watch this movie. But there was a movie that came out recently called Promising Young Woman. And what's interesting is that the movie was not intended to be kind of a statement movie, but it kind of ended up being that way just based on the subject matter. When I listened to an interview with the director, and the director never intended for it to be a statement movie of any kind. She wanted to simply be like a straight up revenge movie. But like with the subject matter involved with the movie, you almost can't help but think of that. And that has nothing to do with the creator's intent. It has entirely to do with like the public's perception of it based entirely on when it came out. So I find it really fascinating that you bring that up.
Yeah. Well, you can't separate your personal experience subtext from the information you're taking in. You can't. And that's why we have such difficult time in this country. Everybody's perception of what's really going on depends on their experience. And we can't agree, because somebody says they see this number and this person sees this number, because it adds up differently based on their experiences. And so movies can bring us together, because you can watch a movie and you can watch the same movie and we can see it differently and we can discuss that, but I don't know, I'm just trying to illustrate your point. It just, no matter what happens, you take a movie from, or any kind of piece of artwork or whatever, from an earlier point of view, an earlier time, and bring it now, and there's nothing you can do to change the fact that it's going to be perceived differently.
No, that's 100% right as far as that goes. And it's funny. So we're already getting some comments right now. So I just wanted to bring those up.
What I was going to say actually was, stick around, guys. The back half is when we're going to hit the Q&A, so drop your questions, stick around, enjoy the show, and we will get to your questions. We appreciate every single comment that's coming in. Thank you guys so much. I can't wait to answer them. But I really love this train of thought that we're on right now,
I knew we were going to get off to a good start just by having Jeff here for sake of purpose.
So I don't want to lose that. And so while we're kind of back on sort of the analog versus digital conversation that we had with you last time, I mean, that's some of the undertones I'm getting from this, Jeff. Now that we've seen how Cobra Kai is resonating, there's a case to be made, and something that's interesting. Star Wars had a resurgence, but Star Wars kind of, I would say, pandered to a lot of different trends and different topics, whereas Cobra Kai kind of stayed true. And I kind of wanted to get your take on that, because the 80s revival isn't new. We've had Ghostbusters come out and flop. Why is it that Cobra Kai, which is a TV show, and these are movies that came out and flopped, Ghostbusters, that Predator remake from 2016, which was god-awful.
2018, but
2018, I mean, why do you think that? Why do you think this is the show that's cutting through?
I have I have some opinions about Star Wars. I grew up with Star Wars. I had a Star Wars bar mitzvah. Okay.
Oh, I'm jealous already. I'm jealous already.
It was in the newspaper. Okay, we had R2D2, and we had ridiculous.
My God, I'm jealous. Don't just dare call it ridiculous. I'm jealous.
For a 13-year-old kid, that was it, man.
That was the shit, is what that is.
It was incredible. So I have a different kind of, again, perception. My experience of the time of Star Wars is very close to my heart. It's something I grew up with. It's a part of my childhood. But I will say that ever since the movies went to Disney, they just ain't the same movies, and I'm not really interested anymore.
With the exception of Rogue One, I will put that out there. I feel like with the exception of Rogue One.
Yeah.
Interesting. No. Definitely never later, but definitely a point. I love bringing that up with people.
I stopped with Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, you're one of the. Okay, all right. That says a lot.
It's not a bad place to stop.
I think I'm with George Lucas. And he got out too.
Yeah. Is he ever really out from Star Wars though? Let's be honest here.
Yeah. Well, the point is, though, at least my point was that getting back to what Chris was trying to get to is that Star Wars is pandering, and I don't think pandering's a fair word, because that's implying that they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. I mean, we pandered in the 70s and in the 80s to the audiences at that time, so that's not fair.
Yeah, I guess I kind of meant, it's a live show, so but I guess I kind of meant like there have been articles written by prominent critics and Hollywood Reporter and stuff that have drawn claims of critics saying it feels pandery or whatnot. So there hasn't been met with 100% positive nostalgia love. To rephrase that a little better.
I think I would like to say, and this is purely an opinion and not coming from anywhere that I've read or know or anything. This is my own personal opinion. And I kind of believe that they're trying to be creative, and they're trying to write new great movies. And Star Wars is not something you want to mess with. And if you're going to do it, you gotta stay true to, in my opinion, you want to stay as true as you can. But at the same time, you need to develop new characters. You need to develop new storylines. You need to keep the audience interested, And so I'll give them some slack on that, because I mean, they have to take it in a direction somewhere. I mean, you're going to have how many spin-offs, and not everything's going to be a winner. To be honest with you, Star Wars was not a winner. I mean, that movie flopped when it came out. It took a very long time for it to build up some speed. It wasn't a huge success right out the box. In fact, it may have been by the time they released it nationally, but at the beginning, it did not. It didn't. When they did the test marketing of it, it didn't do well, and they thought it was going to be kind of a third-rate movie, and it came out and it was a smash. No one expected it, is what I meant to say. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to create lightning in a bottle. And I think that's what the studios, when they've got billions of dollars at stake, they don't really have, there's no option but to create lightning in a bottle. And so they're going to miss sometimes, and I just think when it comes to the Star Wars spin-offs and the extra shows and all the new, I don't know, it just doesn't feel very authentic and sincere, genuine to me anymore. It just feels like a bunch of weird ass, science fiction movies. And not good ones, because I'm into Blade Runner and Dune and 2001, and those are my science fiction movies. So that's an interesting point I'll bring up. As I've gotten older and my perceptions have changed of the world, I've grown away from Star Wars. I wouldn't like Star Wars today. I would lean more toward Star Trek. I would lean more toward, those kind of sci-fis if I was going to go for a real commercial sci-fi kind of thing than I would Star Wars if it was brand new today, But as 13, it was great.
Yeah. And it's so funny, because I feel like that's another tremendous problem that I feel like not enough people kind of grabbed onto with these most recent batch of Star Wars movies, is the fact that originally Star Wars is a property that, as much as people like kind of, again, like we're still pretty far apart in age, but people like our age still for the most part enjoy. Star Wars was originally a property that was made for kids, right? And I feel like that's something that the more recent projects have gotten away from, specifically, is this idea that they feel the need to kind of, the weird thing is that Star Wars is a property that they should be aiming at kids, right? Because just from a pure economic standpoint, kids are the means to selling movies and getting the movies, those $1 billion that they deserve. And obviously, parents bringing them, and then obviously, word of mouth and everything. But the weird thing is that these most recent batch of movies seem to have been trying to appeal specifically to people in like that weird in-between generation between yours and ours, and that's where they seem to have missed, because that's where they're trying to hit like all their quadrants and like, you know, all their marketing meetings that they have as far as how to appeal to the movies before, and that's what they seem to have missed, versus right now what we're seeing with Cobra Kai and a couple of these other 80s properties that you know, or 80s like kind of resembling properties, is that those are rather doing the complete opposite. They're not trying to like appeal to all of these different like demographics. They're just simply going with the tone and the vibe of what the property was originally, and just kind of not recreating, but like bringing it to, and kind of having it exist and having a kind of contrast with the modern day sensibilities. And that's where we're kind of getting all this rich new material from. And that seems to be the thing that the Star Wars movies were so wanted to avoid, and that's why they seem to have crashed and burned.
It's funny because in a way, and you know, the people listening, you might crack up about this, but in a way, Spaceballs was more true to Star Wars.
That is so true. I do love that film.
God, dropping some knowledge right here.
Hearing you guys both sort of, you know, go back and forth there, I think for me personally, maybe a better way I could have sort of phrased that is, I think that what Cobra Kai has done so excellently is they've taken the feel from the original Karate Kid movies, but they didn't get too far away from the heart and soul while still introducing new and challenging material. I feel the new Star Wars films are very safe. They're very, okay, let's remake A New Hope and the first Force Awakens, and let's, you know, have Luke do the very predictable.
The winners in those movies are the technical guys.
For real. For real.
I mean, they get to try out all their new software. I mean, those are the winners. Those guys are like,
those movies all look good.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate to me, because there's so much rich material there where they could have challenged us the same way Johnny Lawrence challenges you when you're watching, and he says something that's a little kind of like, ooh, should I laugh at this? But we have to find humor in things, right?
They could have done something really special with Luke Skywalker's character. Yeah. I mean, they could have turned him into a Johnny Lawrence kind of guy, or Daniel LaRusso, or Daniel. I can't even speak right now. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
The point is they could have turned that character into a character that had grown up, so to speak, and I think that would have had a lot more depth to it, and it wouldn't have just be, to use a poor word, pandered again, but pandering just to the quick, easy money of the kids that are going to go anyway, you know.
Which is ironic that you bring that up, because weirdly enough, the thing that obviously, again, that was in the movie of the new movies that like everybody hated and railed against, and the ironic thing is that of all the things that I thought they got wrong about these in the last couple of movies, I think that what they did with Luke actually kind of worked, but the one apropos of that I'll bring up is the fact that it's following up a solid 30 years of stuff that we didn't get to see. So as a result, his actions in that movie feel completely unjustified. But like,
that's my point.
Yeah.
Bring us into that.
Exactly. And that was the problem.
And that gets us back to Cobra Kai, because they successfully and you know, Ralph and William Zabka, those guys have been, their characters really didn't change,
right?
And it was very obvious that they were very, very adamant about keeping the characters the same people, grown up, but the same people,
right?
And that's where the whole thing has spawned from. And because of that, they didn't need to make up some crazy ass story about them. You could just kind of visualize, you know, Johnny Lawrence not really making it and maybe becoming a kind of a closet drunk and whatever. And you could visualize that. You could see, okay, being a bully and losing, being such a big loser at that time may have pushed him over the edge, especially with a bad childhood and you know, an abusive father and etc. So you kind of go, yeah, I could see that. Okay, let's bring it on. Let's see what happens. And you could see LaRusso becoming a little bit more
big for his britches.
I don't know, a little too I want to say cocky, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And thinking his shit don't stink, because you know he won and he's a winner, and this is what a winner does, you know. And right there you get your automatic flip, and so you're like, okay, this is now interesting. And it's interesting on another level, because that's what life is. life is interesting like that. Life
Yeah.
isn't just, just here's a good guy, Darth Vader. I mean, Luke Skywalker, and here's a bad guy, Darth Vader.
Right.
Life is way more complicated than
Right.
that. A lot of gray areas, and I'll shut up. But
Please keep
beautiful
talking.
thing-
I keep
the
saying
beau-
this. You keep seeming to think that like whenever you keep talking, it's gonna be a bad thing. It's like, no, keep talking, please.
I don't
I'm
want to
loving
bore
it, man.
anybody. But the
You make us sound
two,
smarter as a result.
those two characters in Cobra Kai, the two main characters, they give legitimacy to the storylines in which they're trying to portray now. And so that's a winning combination. I think people are hungry for stuff that isn't just pandering to them, telling them how it is. Forget the last 30 years. This is how it is now. No, this is life. And
Yeah.
people, last thing I'll say on this level, on this point, is that in the world in which we live today, especially during COVID, where everybody's really kind of glued to a technical life right now, they're dealing with people on the other side of the screen as opposed to actually talking to them in person. Watching a movie like that or a show like that gives you a little bit more visceral kind of attachment that you aren't maybe receiving right now.
No, absolutely.
It's a sign of the times, but it's the right time and the right place for Cobra Kai.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny that you mentioned that because one of the things that I enjoyed about a lot of the movies that I got in the past decade was their attention to realism. Right now, I personally think that word has been very misconstrued in the modern day term.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say is that I think that where a lot of the properties, both on movies and TV, have gotten it right is the sense of really bringing in this incredible sense of moral gray that has, for the most part, I'm not going to say has been non-existent, but definitely was never as overemphasized in previous properties.
It wasn't as important in the eyes of the producers.
Right. It was much more so, I feel like, fantastical, a lot more, again, getting back to that traditional good versus evil. Every movie had your good guys that you rooted for and your bad guys that you hated,
Exactly. Now, we could argue on the realism of Cobra Kai.
Right.
Because I do
I have some realism right there.
But you know what? The criticisms can be overlooked to a point because at the base, at the foundation of it, they've stayed true to those characters. So you gotta. That's good. But some of the realism, you have to kind of say, okay, it's a movie, it's a show. I get it. Oh, that's cool, and we want to see some fighting. So that's part of it too. You may not see that in real life. So there's a little bit more of an emphasis on some of the action. But again, the perception of how you see Cobra Kai now as opposed to Karate Kid is very much it lands where people would expect to in their perception of it. And so that's why it's hitting so hard. It's because, this makes sense to me in 2020. You know what I mean?
And also...
No, Chris, you go.
Sorry,
I actually got to use the bathroom real quick, so that works perfectly.
Go for it. Yeah, I also think that...
Okay, now we can talk about him.
Yeah, we can. Hey, look, it's like he's still here with us. But yeah, I think that one thing that Cobra Kai does, and like obviously I have a podcast where we talk about movies each week. I very much so enjoy consuming Hollywood and all that they do, but I do enjoy the refreshing take on sort of the way that we view the world that Cobra Kai offers, because it could very much so be offensive and really upset a lot of people. But to me, it does it in such a way where it's like, well, if we don't find humor in something, we're just going to drive ourselves mad and pull all of our hair out. And so I do also think it thrives. Whereas, back to the whole comparison, Star Wars or Cobra Kai, right? The reboots. Star Wars to me was too safe. Like, they could have begged questions with Rey and being an orphan and finding her way in the galaxy, but instead she just quickly found the Force and quickly, was able to get wrapped up in just like the easy good bad storyline. Like she found it so quickly. Whereas Johnny, like, I know you haven't seen the third season and I won't spoil anything, but I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise that he's still finding his way. A 50-something-year-old man is still in the world trying to find his way and doing it in such a way where he's growing. Not by choice, but just because that's actually the nature of life. It's not always a movie moment.
Yeah, that's a good point. The thing about the thing about Karate Kid, or at least I should say Cobra Kai, is because they're connected, and they always will be connected in that sense that they're always following. Like you mentioned, the Force. It's the same movie, really. The Star Wars analogy is very apt because the Force is what Miyagi was teaching. Basically, the Force. You know, we're talking. You know what we're talking about.
Of course.
Are you with us? Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You got a bathroom cam or something?
Oh, something like that. I'm super hearing. I'm Superman sonic hearing. That's what I have.
So my point is, Chris was talking about, you know, the Star Wars. Some of it doesn't seem realistic because it's too easy. They got the Force too easily. But the thing is that the difference of where they put the emphasis on what's important, and it was very important to movies, to stories, to great songs, to have a lesson somewhere in there that was deep, that even if you enjoyed, you know, you enjoyed the orchestra and all the extras and the this and that, you still got some when you left the theater, you got something, you know, that you could take with you and maybe take with you for years. Who knows? Maybe it taught you something that got your head thinking about something you wouldn't otherwise have been thinking. And the parallels between Miyagi's teachings and the Force are undeniable. You know, they're almost the same kind of idea. And I agree with you in that they kind of shove it off to the side a little bit with some of the new Star Wars films. I mean, that is to me what the movie was about. The Force. It was about learning to control your own emotions, learning to control yourself inside, because the outside's uncontrollable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So Jeff,
Grace,
I kind of want to
great Rush album, Grace Under Pressure, you know.
I honestly don't know that one. Rest in peace, Neil Peart. We lost him last year. Amazing talent.
I saw that.
But Jeff, you know, you're bringing up a lot of the Miyagi isms of Karate Kid, which I think that was a very amazing analogy. You know, you don't have to lift rocks to get the same feeling out of the Force in a different property. So
Right.
I kind of wanted to transition into talking about the original Karate Kid film, and more specifically, I mean, you were quite literally on the same set as the legend Pat Morita. What was that like? You know, how close did you interact with him? Because I mean, Happy Days was already an incredible show in and of itself, and then he goes and just breaks the world quite literally with this performance, and you're just a young talent on the rise, soaking this all up. I mean, would you mind sort of like pulling the curtain back there for us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I did work with Pat, and I wasn't on the set to the degree that, you know, obviously the principals were on, but my time on the set was actually quite extensive, even if I was just sitting in my dressing room. And often, you know, Pat wasn't in every scene either. He wasn't really, he was a principal actor, but he didn't have a principal part in the sense that the whole movie was about him. It was really about other things. So he was very, you know, very essential, but there was a lot of times we found ourselves sitting around, you know, and he's a comedian. That was his main gig, you know, and a lot of comedians, you know, look at Robin Williams, you look at Jim Carrey, look at all these brilliant guys, and these comedians generally, they if they're really good comedians, they usually make really good actors too, because they understand the human condition. That's what being a good comedian is, knowing how to make you laugh, knowing how to push those buttons. That's what a good actor can do. And so it's no surprise to me that he was just unbelievable in this role by the time he got to it, you know. But there were it was not an easy role for him to get, from what I understand, you know. But you asked me about my experience with him, and I told you this, maybe I think I mentioned something like this on the last time we talked, but on the set, there was a very strong sense of adversarialism going on. You know, we were all young guys, all fresh out of high school. Everybody's fighting for more screen time. So you already got that adversarial thing going on amongst young actors on a set. That's going to happen. You know, there's a lot of that competition. But John Avildsen kind of wanted to spark that competition more. He kind of encouraged it, because he didn't want Ralph to feel, or any of the other guys that were not karate guys, he didn't want us to feel comfortable. He wanted us to. I mean, come on, you know, these guys were going to kick your ass if you look at them funny in school. On set, why wouldn't they do that? You know, he was kind of like a method director, was my experience.
That's pretty impressive. So, kind of Kubrickian almost, if you will.
Well, that was how. And so I'm not saying that it wasn't fun to go to work, but it was a lot more fun when we wrapped and we hung out later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Pat was a shining beacon of like just hilarity. You know, there was this sense, like I said, this sense of kind of adversarialism. But when you walk up to him, he didn't buy into that. He was very, very, you know, like he'd have scenes that were very serious, and you know, a couple, especially the scene that I think he was nominated for, which was when he was the Vietnam scene when he was talking about his. Oh my God! And
yeah, incredible scene.
He'd do the scene and he'd come off the set and he'd just make a joke, you know, and start joking around with everybody. And so he was just the sweetest guy. He had always a smile, always a nice thing to say. And I was a young, pretty inexperienced guy, and you know, I was around a couple heavyweights in that movie with John Avildsen and Pat and you know, not a karate person, you know, and so there was a little intimidation factor going on, but he made me feel very comfortable. And one day he came up, he drove up, and he has a license plate on his car, and I asked him what it was, and he goes, it said Arno car on it, and I said, what does that mean? He goes, not Fonzie car, not Ricci car, Arno car. Arnold's car. Arnold from Happy Days.
Oh my God.
Nice.
That's incredible. That's,
you know, rather than just telling me, oh, that's my license plate from the character, he just tells me the story about it's not Fonzie car. You know? So he wasn't ashamed, or it wasn't like he was trying to tuck the fact that he was on Happy Days. That's how, you know, he embraced the fact that we all were like kind of mesmerized that we were working with Arnold from Happy Days, you know.
oh, that's oh my God, just makes me even more sad that like he's obviously not alive to see.
I didn't have the you know, the fortune to know him after rap. You know, we didn't become friends or something, and so it would, I think though, had I gotten to know him, I think that you know, he was an incredible guy. You know, I mean, just if you look at his story, and he overcame a lot of I would say prejudice, a lot, and I don't mean just because of the Japanese thing. I mean because he's a comedian. How can he do a serious role? That kind of prejudice. There's that, you know.
Yeah, that was a big thing that I heard. Was because it's funny. I don't know if you're familiar with Bill Simmons and the Ringer Network at all, but I've gotten big into their podcast network. They do this podcast feed called The Rewatchables, where they basically just talk about old movies on it. And on their Karate Kid episode, which I listened to right after I finished watching the first 2 seasons of Cobra Kai, I listened to their episode, and it was him talking with another guy, Ryan Russillo. And they were talking all about like just the casting process for Miyagi alone, and how like nobody wanted Pat at first originally because they're like, yeah, it's true. At times, like, it's a comic actor. Like, how can he do this? Like a pretty serious part, you know? When he came in, he crushed it. Got a freaking Oscar nomination for it.
And you know, back then you were, I mean, not necessarily typecast, but the industry wasn't as open to you.
You were typecast.
You can use
a jack of all trades, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, especially that's why I mentioned the fact that, you know, good comedians are usually good actors. Usually. Yeah. You know, I think I don't know who was championing him for the role. I don't think Jerry Weintraub was particularly fond of bringing a comedic character in. I don't know who in the end was the one that pushed him, but I know that he had 5 or 6 auditions, and he convinced them with his acting ability. Period. His resume didn't help him at all. And in fact, it was hurting him. And yet he proved to them, well, because I'll tell you how you can prove it. Not because he already has an Oscar, not because of all the accolades afterwards. You know, because how many times you've seen a pretty good film and they remake it and they put a different character in the role, and you kind of buy it. I mean, look at the James Bond movies, you know. I mean, I don't know which Bond guy you are, but you might be on a fence there, you know. And some guys are Roger Moore, some guys are not. You know, the point is that that character can live with different faces on it. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work with a different Miyagi. It would not work. I don't think I think Karate Kid Cobra Kai would have flopped if they tried to
bring back Miyagi somehow. I mean, like the way they use Miyagi in the show is already perfect enough. So. Yeah,
I mean, it's very respectful, of course.
Absolutely.
But it's also they're not trying to they're using the fact that he can't be there to their advantage, and they're doing it respectfully, and they're doing it well. And other movies that you've seen that are remakes might try to recreate such an important character. And that's the fact that you can't recreate it. That's how you know how good he was.
Yeah.
Because it just, you're not going to buy it. You're just not going to buy it.
You know, it's you hit the nail on the head in regards to how Cobra Kai uses Mr. Miyagi, and it's almost like we're still getting him as a character with how well they paint who he is through Daniel and through what Daniel gives to Miyagi-Do. It's really brilliant. I mean,
isn't that the nature of life? You know, you take what your father gives you or your father's father and you take it to the next generation, and that's how you live on, you know. And they've done that remarkably.
That's exactly what it's funny because the flashbacks, right, to the previous movies, they were something that, again, without spoiling anything, but I'm going to talk a little bit about season 3. That in season 2,
I'm gonna watch it anyway.
Well, just that you don't get too surprised by anything that comes in. With that, in season 2, I thought they were a little bit like, I like season 2 of the show. I liked it a lot, but in season 2, I thought they were getting a little bit too, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit too gratuitous with the usage of the flashbacks. I thought they would just throw in flashbacks in order to take up space. It was starting to get to the point where it's like, okay, I feel like you're just throwing flashbacks in order to take up spare time.
They were only gratuitous if I wasn't in them.
So in that case, all of them are. But
there you go.
But in season 3, the thing that I liked the most, amongst many other things that I liked a lot about this past season, is that the way that they injected the Miyagi flashbacks, which spoilers are still there in this season, it kind of harkened back to how they were using the first season, where the thing that I enjoyed so much about how they were using the first season is they managed
of it.
Well, not just the nostalgic feeling of it, but how they was kind of able to inject and in a way still show that Daniel was still learning without feeling like, again, this is a term that I've used frequently on the show, the member berry from South Park, you know, it wasn't just a thing where you just chuck it in there in order to try like, hey, remember this? Like, remember Miyagi? No, it's exactly what you were saying. It's a way to still incorporate.
It doesn't feel like a pop.
Exactly. It's a way to still incorporate that character and everything that character meant to the universe into the show in a way that's still meaningful to the story as far as pushing it forward.
And you can thank the guys from Harold and Kumar for that.
Right.
and you know, another thing that Cobra Kai does that is the right way to sort of, you know, oh man,
that's one thing I forgot to tell you about Chris. Josh Heald, one of the 3 guys, was one of the writers for Harold and Kumar, and John Hurwitz worked on another comedy property. So,
oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that went over my head.
And the parallel is that Pat Morita was not right for Miyagi, and he was, and these guys were not right to rewrite Karate Kid, and they are,
and they did,
and
they're
comedians
so well. Like that was the thing. Like I remember, like William Zabka was being what's it called? Was being interviewed by Bill Simmons, ironically enough, a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about the fact that it's like, yeah, like Josh Heald, John Hurwitz, like they worked on Harold and Kumar and all these other comedies, and like I didn't, and then they pitched him in the idea. It's like, wow, that was like already the idea that I had of Johnny Lawrence in my head. So yeah, let's do it. And they just been like full steam ahead since.
Yeah, and you know what works in regards to that too is the fact that, like, I've listened to a few interviews as well this week with Zabka and Machio, and they haven't stopped thinking about these characters. Like for them, this was like the opportunity that they were waiting to jump at. Another thing this show does, which I don't know if you knew this, Jeff, they don't use footage from the original film. What they use is supporting footage, camera angles that didn't make the cut. They actually went and they got the old, I don't know what you call it.
The reels.
The old reels, thank you, from Sony. And Sony leased them to them for the show.
It was originally Columbia Pictures, and they sold it to Sony. Yeah.
Yep.
So I was thinking to myself, I was like, why do these flashbacks, outside of the purpose that they serve for the writing standpoint, which is brilliant, but why don't they irritate me like when Friends would do those clip show after clip show, and it'd be the worst. You'd be watching Friends on a binge, and it's like three episodes in a row that are clip shows. This is terrible. It's because like they're still offering something new even when we're looking back.
Right.
That's brilliant.
Essential. I mean, it's brilliant from your perspective, from my perspective, but it's really intrinsic to what they're doing. It kind of makes sense. I think that if we were in that position, we'd be like, hey, can we dig up any new footage old footage that would be new for us? That would be gold, and they're finding it. So the fact that Sony, I don't think that, and this is just my opinion because of from what I know, but I don't think that they were trusted with that for the first season. And now that they're on Netflix and they've kind of proven that they're not going to destroy the, many episodes later,
Jeff,
that they're going to do justice to it. Yeah.
I know you haven't seen the third season, but we actually spent a decent amount of time on our episode last week talking about the third season of the show, discussing something more zeitgeisty, more business minded around this. So let me pose this question to you, because I'd be curious to get your take on it as someone who's been in the entertainment industry for quite some time. It kind of, in music, I think it can be equated to a one-hit wonder where they have their moment, and will they make it, or was it just that they hit at the right point in time and then they're going to slowly fade away, you know? One thing that we kind of came to the consensus of, Dom and I, on our episode, was that Cobra Kai, it benefited from the fact that it was the first YouTube Red viral show, and that you could see the view count, 83 million hits in that first year on the pilot episode.
Right.
That's appealing. People want to go where the numbers are. But then I also think, and Dom and I had said, we also think it benefited from YouTube having this golden hit, dropping them, the show not knowing if it's going to get a third season. Will it have legs to keep going? All of the buzz around the show.
Underdog.
And yeah, exactly. Not to say that the show isn't well written, because we can talk about that another 30 minutes, but I feel like that stone's been turned over already.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
but do you think the show would have, as, because it's the number one show right now. It came out, what, 8 days ago, and it's still the number one show on Netflix.
Yeah,
and when
like
the
that.
first two seasons hit Netflix, it was number one for like 3 weeks. And they were
Yeah.
dropping new content as well. So do you think that, how much do you think, rather, did the zeitgeist moment of, will this show live? Oh, we got confirmed for season 3. We're back. We're alive. How much of that do you think helped the show in regards to like someone who's seen people come and go in the entertainment industry, you know?
I think if this started on Netflix, it would still be big, just as big as it is now. And the reason is because although there may have been a little bit of momentum from what you're describing, you know, with the will this thing fall, you know, sink or fall, you know, sink or swim, maybe there's a little of that. But really, I think that, again, it goes back to the fact that the Karate Kid, and I hate to keep bringing up old you know, kind of analogies, but
No, please
that
do. Please keep bringing them back.
May the force be with you. You know, that meant something in Star Wars, and Miyagi's teachings, you know, means something, and so that held over from the 80s. It never disappeared. People, I mean, you can just go line through line of, you know, your dead meat and all kinds of, no mercy and blah blah blah. I mean, there's tons of lines from the movies that have gone into the vernacular now, that are part of our lexicon or whatever, you know, that have sort of culturally, you know, just doing the pose, you know, people are, you know, I mean, it became a meme, you know, without Cobra Kai. So I really think that the strength of that film and the connection people have to that era with that film is really what's pulling it over the you know, pulling it into the end zone. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's what's pulling it along. And
Totally.
the fact that they're doing it well with younger actors now, and they're basically taking the story from where it was to, you know, as life continues, is brilliant. So it's such a winning combination.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think
probably
there's sorry, Dom, and I'll let you get some in after this, but I just want to, while we're on this sentiment, I think there's something which I know wasn't intended, but there's something beautiful about the fact that, what is Cobra Kai about, right? It's about senseis passing down knowledge to their students. And if you read those behind set interviews, and even if, you know, Billy Zabka and, you know, Ralph Macchio weren't being so generous with the young actors, taking time aside to really impart wisdom and knowledge on them, you would just still learn something being around legends like that in an environment anyways, where it's like training the next generation. The show's quite literally doing that on and off screen, which I think is so brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny that you guys bring that up, because that's, to me, is one of my favorite elements of the show. Like, I think that, again, so at the risk of sounding kind of too much of a Gen Zer, the one thing I will say is that the one thing that the show definitely leaned into, which at points I wasn't sure was going to make me lean into it, and Chris can actually back me up on this, because Chris was like, is that I thought it was a little bit too corny. That's the one thing I will say at first.
Well, can I interrupt here?
Oh, absolutely.
So we're getting on to some negatives now, and we don't have to, you know, dwell on them, but I wasn't buying the relationship between Daniel and his wife. That relationship, I kept saying, well, I'm not feeling this. I'm not. They're not a couple. I'm sorry, they're not a couple.
That's interesting because weirdly enough, that's one of the relationships that I actually think is like really funny. That's not necessarily for like how it works as far as like being in a married couple go, because like I've never been married, so I have no idea. But
no, it's well, you have friends. I mean, it's not. I mean, you know, a married couple that is raising. Well, I'll give you another example of what I'm trying to say. His son, the youngest son, the kind of overweight
he's basically
kid,
become like a non-character at this point.
What is that? Why is he there? I mean, why aren't you imparting Miyagi onto this kid? He could use it.
Yeah, right.
Know? He clearly favors his daughter.
I mean, his daughter can take care of herself. She's proven that.
The son seems to have fallen victim to the AJ Soprano syndrome, which is where I noticed that a lot as time was going. Like, because I'm actually doing a rewatch of The Sopranos right now. And the thing that I noticed is that AJ, they were definitely doing like a lot of stuff with him at first, and then as the seasons went on, they were just like, yeah, we don't care about this character, but like we still like have him here as a result of it. So we're just. I mean,
it's. I think they would have been fine without him.
Yeah. If it was just Sam and he was just gone from the show, it would have made absolutely no difference. He's literally just there to take up space.
And he's not even adding any comedic relief.
Right.
You know, and I feel bad for him a little bit because it's like, you know, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
a young kid.
Every show. Dream. Every show has just got that one actor that's just there and is just happy to be there. And
but it feels so obvious to me.
Yeah. And
that's so when they're so detailed about everything else, and then they've got like this glaring weird loose end. Why don't you fix this thing?
Yeah, it's so funny that you bring that up because that's
abducted or something. Get rid of.
Hey, who knows? Hey, well, once you get into this new season, you might see that could provide for a whole season's worth of storyline.
I mean, but you know, maybe Martin Coe's character is planning on holding him for ransom or something.
Oh, it just makes me so mad that you haven't seen season 3 yet.
Line. Yeah, if you've seen season 3, that could be a potential.
Oh my god! It like you thought Martin Coe was insane in season 2. Wait till you see what they do with him in season 3. But it's so funny because I feel like every single show, as attention to detail oriented as they get, there's always that one thing that falls through the cracks. You know, Sopranos has your AJ Soprano. The Wire has your 5th season. You know, every show has that. Lost has just, you know, the Lost is a whole beast in and of itself. Chris can get into that.
Yeah, we don't need to go there right now.
Every show seems to have the one little bit of crack in the armor, and that just seems to be the one. But that's my original point. The thing that I love in this show is I love how the show is incorporated the younger characters, right? Because I feel like, again, as much as I love Johnny and Daniel, if it was a show just about Johnny and Daniel and no one else, it would not work as far as I'm concerned. But it's the fact that you have the younger kids there to kind of take up the mantra and in a way kind of like shoulder the feud that is now passed on to the next generation. Now that you see like the wars, I'm going to call it what they are, the active wars that are going on between the different dojos as far as that goes is both funny, insane, but also, again, like a really good means of continuing. Like I said, the thing that we talked about in the last episode, that kind of built up and pent up toxicity, and what happens when that gets unintentionally at points, but like leaked down to future generations to how they perceive it. You know, you see the transformation of the Hawk character, who has probably become like my favorite character of the younger kids, and I never thought in a million years that I'd be saying that. How
he made that transition really fast too.
Yes, but I think that's one of the things that worked, weird enough, even though it went fast. Especially, like I said, once you get to this new season, you see what he goes through this season. Like, it still adds a lot to that character specifically.
Yeah.
He's grown up a lot.
Yeah. The characters, I haven't seen 3, but...
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to talk around it.
Transformation so quickly, though.
But, Jeff, you know, one thing that... It's interesting. I mean, you were one of these kids, essentially, back when this thing started, you know? So, I mean, I would like to know for someone, and we know that, guys, we did an interview with Jeff a few months back where we really dove into like his career and his history. So if you're looking for that, be sure to go check that out. It's on our channel. Yeah, no worries.
Take it and tell him I want to talk to him. Okay. Sorry. I'm back. What happened?
Chris, you got muted. You're muted.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, my, controls happen when you have these Apple keyboards, they're not really that good. Anyways, they're too sticky. They click on and off too quickly.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. So what were you saying?
So I mean, yeah. So I'm curious because you essentially were in the situation of where Miguel is right now, or where Hawk is right now, or, you know, where any of these young kids are. I mean, and we know you did music really acting as a means to an end to get to the stage, right? To tour the world and do that type of thing. Like music is kind of, but you're still an artist and you're a creator in each way. So like if you could tell those kids one thing about sort of being in the moment, not getting too caught up as like someone who was in their shoes, like now they're, looking up to Ralph Macchio in the same way that maybe some of your young cast members or maybe even you, looked up to Pat Morita. So, I mean, what would you tell them as an actor who's kind of been there, done that? Because you're oddly informed in this situation,
Well, they don't seem to need my help. But I think the most important thing, and is something that you can't really teach somebody, but you can push them in the right direction. And that is, and it sounds so hokey to say it, it's just learn who the hell you are. And you're not going to learn that in 5 minutes. You're not going to learn that in 10 years. And in Johnny Lawrence's case, he hasn't learned it in 50, So, I mean, there's some lessons there. And again, it kind of echoes really what Karate Kid was about, which is, partly what it's about, which is learning what it is that you are from the inside out, go in, don't second guess it. Allow it to flourish, and that means mistakes and all. That's how you grow. That's how you learn. Don't try to be like anybody. Don't try to emulate to the degree where it's not you anymore. Take in things that you want to try out. When I was learning how to sing, man, I tried to sing like everybody I heard. I wanted to be like Dennis DeYoung. I wanted to be like, Paul Rogers. I wanted to sing like Lou Gramm, those were my singers, Steve Perry. And so there's nothing wrong with trying to model your behavior or your artwork a little bit around the things that ignite your creativity. But in that process, you have to remember that you got to find your voice. You got to find who you are. So I guess, one piece of advice would be, however Lawrence's character or Billy Zabka, how he portrays that character is one way to portray it, and the characters that are in Cobra are choosing their way to portray. Hawk is portraying it his way. It's not the only way. It's his interpretation of what's on the paper, and the only way you can do that and do it well is to have a sense of who you are and who you aren't. And that takes a little bit of self-discovery. It takes a little bit of just a little bravery, just to give it a shot and to try things. When I was that age, I didn't have that wisdom. I think I had it I could talk about it, but in practice, I was a little more intimidated sometimes and a little scared and unsure of myself. When I got up on stage to sing a song or do something like that, that's where it disappeared. So I learned quickly that, wait, this is a path for me to figure out what I do well and how I can create that more. So I found a vehicle for that. And for some, it's acting. For some, it's singing and writing and performing. So that would be my advice. It's not easy, and it's not supposed to be. No,
definitely not. And it's funny that you mentioned that because, again, that's just, I feel like experiences that I've had personally with my life. Definitely Chris's, I know for a fact, has had with his life. Just that idea of like kind of finding yourself, and everybody thinks that that's like such an easy term. They're like, oh, I'm going to go and do this thing, and that's going to tell me, this about myself. And it's like, no, it's not an open and shut case. And the thing, like I said, I've done, I was always dabbling when I was in high school. I did the talent show multiple times. I was trying out multiple instruments. I tried multiple times at YouTube channels. I was always watching movies, always trying to just like, I've been on set a couple of times. I was always trying to like learn the different aspects of it in order to try and better myself. But I think the key is to not be conscious of it, if that makes any sense. Not conscious in the sense of like, okay, like be like that's just tuning everything out, but like just like it's something that I feel like Chris has always been brought up on this channel, which is you never stop learning, kind of always look for ways to better yourself.
Well, let me say it this way, because you're touching on a good point. It's not so much that you don't want to be aware of it. You want to be aware of it. You want to always ask yourself, you want to check in and figure out, okay, am I being true to myself right now? Does this feel right? put on this pair of pants. Does it feel like mine, or does it not? And that awareness is super important. But to do things with the idea that if I do this, then I'll get this, that's not the answer.
Yeah,
That's not going to help you, and that's
it's shooting yourself in the foot before you take a walk out the door.
Yeah, how we talked about perception earlier on, about how you perceive a movie at one time in your life or one era. It's no different in your life. You will go back to the same lessons in your life at different times in your life and get different things out of them because of your perspective. And so it's very important that you're open to a new perspective. You have to constantly update your knowledge about who you are. It sounds scientific, but the truth is that as you grow, you learn something new, you got to update your thinking. And you shouldn't have to sit down and go, okay, I'm going to put in a new program now. No, it's kind of an evolution. But if you live your life with the awareness that your software is going to evolve and have version 2 and 3 and 4 and beyond, then it gives you the ability to be open for that software to be changed. And that is what evolution is. That's what growing is. That it is. I know guys that are older than me that are still in the 80s, man. They're wearing their hair just like they were in the 80s, and they're dressing like and I'm like, what's going on? And they think they think that's what they want to be, and they haven't gotten away from 30 years ago. I'm not trying to judge them. I'm not telling them that that's not good. I'm just saying that for me, it doesn't feel like they're updating their software.
Yeah, for real. Especially again, like that. Without spoiling it, there's a certain cameo that comes in season 3 where it's like, wow, we thought Johnny Lawrence never left the 80s. Good God, this guy really never left the 80s. But
yeah, and Jeff, to be more specific, the reason I kind of asked you that is because I mean, if I'm remembering correctly from our previous chat, Karate Kid was really one of your first times acting on a big scale. And you obviously went on to be, acting was always a means to an end for your musical career, as we know, and we covered in our last episode. But these kids and you were, the Stranger Thing kids, let's use them for example. Actually, maybe they're a bad example because Winona Ryder was on the set. But okay, Degrassi, right? Those are all kids who became famous together. There was no sort of OG, no sort of like highly acclaimed actor, no one who I personally would feel pressured if my first time acting on the big screen was with Pat Morita there. I would be all inside of my head. And so I kind of think you kind of share something with these Cobra Kai kids in that regard. And so that's where I was kind of getting at in regards to that question, Yeah,
I see that. I mean, it was, you have to understand, everybody on that movie outside of Pat Morita, I may even go so far as to say John Avildsen too, because John, he was famous for Rocky. And I think that was his first movie, and he won an Oscar for it. And it was just a complete fluke. I mean, he was a completely unknown guy when he did Rocky. And he was still an unknown guy to the world when Karate Kid came along. He was just known in the industry as this guy that did the Steadicam and got an Oscar for this crazy movie that Stallone wanted, And so we were all, outside of maybe Pat Morita, to be honest. Elizabeth Shue was on there, but who was she? I mean, she had no parts. They were just getting started. I was the guys that I worked with more closely: Israel Warby, Frankie Avalon Jr., Tom Fridley. These guys that were part of the cast. This was like their first time on a movie. Maybe not the first time on the movie set, but certainly the first time they were in a big feature film. And Tom Fridley's uncle was John Travolta. So I mean, it wasn't like there was a lot of, just because they had famous family didn't mean that they were working. So there were a lot of people that were in the sort of same level. I never felt that you guys have to understand, when I say I was a little intimidated in this and that, I wasn't intimidated from the acting, from the actors, the people. I was just intimidated because it wasn't my medium.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. I mean, reading scripts and acting was a little uncomfortable for me since I had a world of experience standing up and singing. That was where
Yeah.
I came from. So if someone had me a microphone and say, "Hey, this next scene you got to play and sing," I'm like, "Are you kidding? It's a dream come true. Well, let's do this. Hold my beer." So then that was the only intimidation factor. But everybody on that set at that time was very equal in the sense that there wasn't a lot of history among. There was a lot of really new beginnings for everybody in that movie, almost.
Yeah, because if you're specifically talking about Machio, just in that instance, right?
Only
Machio, he'd been coming up, but he'd been coming off of plays, right? He was a big play actor.
Well, his big thing was Outsiders,
right? But that's the thing, right? He like his first
And
big thing was The Outsiders, like the year before, and then he has this movie a year later, and all of a sudden he's an instant phenomenon. Which it's funny because the ironic thing is that Machio's playing a high school when he's my age. Like I'm 23 right now, and Machio was 23 when he did that movie. We're actually just commenting about how great Machio looks for his age because God bless him, the man's gonna be 60 this year. But
Insane.
yeah, absolutely insane.
Well, the thing is, even Ralph wasn't. I mean, sure, he was the lead in the movie. And he had worked with, Matt Dillon and Patrick Swayze and all those guys from The Outside. Amazing cast.
Yeah, one of the best casts ever for a movie.
The funny thing is that I knew a lot of those guys too because all of us did because on the interviews I went on. I mean, if you know the movie 10 Soldiers, right? I'm trying to remember the working title of that movie. Was it 10 Soldiers? Ooh. Anyway, no, I'm thinking of what? Oh, Red Dawn. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say. I was
just corrected. Red Dawn was a movie that I was up for, and I did some scenes with Thomas Howell.
Oh, yeah, that's like that. That's like the whole cast of The Outsiders, just and like that whole group in the '80s just brought back for that next movie.
I obviously didn't get the part, but my point was, and I know it is 10 Soldiers because that was when we saw the script. I actually auditioned for John Milius.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was a hell of a day.
That's wow. Okay, big name right there.
Even someone that wasn't like that into what was going on at the time.
Wow. That just opened up a whole different floodgate right there.
Yeah, that was a pretty nerve-wracking audition. I'll never forget. I had to cry in that audition. I mean, it was a weird thing. Anyway, I did a scene. I think it was with C. Thomas Howell and a couple other guys, and the point I'm making, I'm getting way off the subject. My point is that at that time, that kind of brat pack of kids that were, the Breakfast Club and Michael Anthony Hall and those guys, they were just dudes I saw in interviews. We weren't friends, but I saw them all the time. I'd go to Columbia Pictures for an audition. I knew William. I knew Billy Zabka. He was auditioning for the Emerald Forest, and I think I auditioned for that too. We were sitting in the waiting room at the time. I didn't know who he was, but I met him. We talked for a few seconds, and then I meet him again like 6 months later on the set of Karate Kid. So I mean, plus he went to school at El Camino, which was down the street from my house. Right. So I mean, it's a very small community, especially in the 80s where there were a lot fewer people. So everybody was very much like, it's like another day out of high school. I mean, we were just like hanging out. After many times, I would go up to Frankie Avalon's house. I'll explain. We used to shoot in Leo Carrillo Beach, which is north of Ventura, and it's up past Mulholland and kind of, way out there in the north part of LA, outside of LA. And so when you're driving back, you're going to drive through Hidden Hills and Agora and Calabasas. And that's where Frankie Avalon Jr. lives with his dad at the time, Frankie Avalon. I mean, he lived there. His dad is still Frankie Avalon. I don't mean at the time.
I don't think his dad ever stopped being Frankie Avalon.
I would go up there to he would invite a bunch of us, and it would be me and Billy and a couple of, like Tony O'Dell and a few of the other guys that would go up. And I'd grab a keyboard, Billy would pick up guitar because Frankie was a drummer. And we would get stoned and just jam. I can't even tell you what we played. It was just,
I'm jealous.
I mean, Frankie
I'm
Avalon
already
Jr.
jealous. Like,
Frankie Avalon Jr. was a huge stoner. So,
of course, who wasn't in LA at the time is the better question.
Yeah, right. It was nuts. But we just screwed around. We were just a bunch of dudes having fun after a day of work, and so there wasn't a whole lot outside of the fact that the only one that we really didn't get to interact with outside was Ralph. He was sequestered in his Winnebago. He had a separate dressing area, and that was intentional. That's like I said, John Avildsen wanted to make sure that he was, that he felt like an outsider.
Pun intended.
Interesting.
We did not really have lunch with the rest of this cast very often.
Right.
Back to more of that method directing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so, I did a podcast with Israel recently, not too long ago. Israel Warby from Karate Kid. He was Freddy. Wow. He played Freddy.
Wow.
And so we did. I'm still friends with him and Frankie, and we still talk. And so we did a podcast, and I said that it was kind of an adversarial scene. He's like, "No way, man! I didn't fall for any of that stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." But
okay, sure you did.
Yeah. But trust me, maybe they didn't encourage it so much with us, but between Ralph and the rest of the cast, yeah, he was separated.
Gotcha.
Definitely. And oh man, like just so many different questions that I want to ask you right now. Overall, it just makes it sound like the 80s was just an awesome time in general. Just chilling on set and then just going back to these guys' houses, like these fucking professional musicians just jamming out. Like, Chris, you must be going nuts right now.
I gotta be clear. I mean, we weren't professional musicians at the time. I was 18 years old.
Now professional.
I was probably, yes. Frankie was a drummer, and then grew up in the music business with his dad. So I mean, he was no slouch. But between the two of us and a bunch of other stoned actors that barely could play anything, who the hell knows what we played?
Yeah.
But it was really more of the fact that we were just having fun. We were just kids.
Exactly. And that's what makes the best art. It's just when you're just a bunch of guys just chilling, having fun.
So
Go ahead. Sorry, Chris.
Oh no, you go ahead, Jeff.
No, I had nothing to say. You started to talk. And I didn't want you
Gotcha. Well, I think I have one more question before we kind of turn to the chat and sort of get them involved, since we have a few questions. Dom, do you feel that we're getting close to that part of it as well?
Absolutely. Cool. Don't forget my Dune topic. I want to pick this guy's brain about Dune because so many things I want to talk about right now.
So I'll ask mine, then you ask yours, then we'll jump into the chat. So guys, get your questions in for either me, Dom, and Jeff. I mean, if you ever wanted to pick the brain of Jeff, now is your chance. So get your questions in, guys. But Jeff, I'm curious now because, like we said, this is the movie and TV show that we do, but you acted as a means to an end to get on the stage, which you eventually achieved. Now, I want to know how much of your time in front of the camera has informed your time behind the microphone.
Oh, almost none.
Okay, interesting.
I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
The reason I say that is because I was already a musician. I was already playing. I had been playing clubs since I was 13. I was doing open mic nights. My dad would sneak me into bars and I would sing and I'd have to leave immediately. I mean, I was not a stranger to performing. That was not a problem for me. The acting was more, oh wow, this is going to take us down a rabbit hole, but I'll do it quick.
Do it.
The acting was really a distraction. What happened was I did a TV show. I got booked on a TV show to sing. It was the Merv Griffin show. And for those of you who don't know who Merv Griffin was, look it up, because he was like Johnny Carson. He was that big. I mean, the guy was a monster. It was the Tonight Show, but it was Merv Griffin. You were either on the Tonight Show, or you were on
Merv Griffin,
or Arsenio Hall, maybe.
That too.
But Merv Griffin was a big deal, and so I performed on the Merv Griffin show singing a Styx song. They wouldn't let me sing my own song. I sang The Best of Times. Remember?
Nice. That's awesome, man.
Pretty great.
Paradise Theater.
That's
Yeah, I've
pretty
seen
great.
Sticks a couple times. I'm a
Yeah.
big fan. Yeah.
So that was a big thrill. But because I did that show, an agent approached me and said, hey, you look young. I think I can get you some acting roles. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I mean, because in Hollywood or in the music business or whatever you want to call it, one job can lead to another and another. It's no different than any other industry. And so you don't really say no to things that you're capable of, or you think you're capable of doing. If someone says, hey, I can get you on some movie sets, you're like, yeah, all right, let's give that a shot. So I was encouraged to do it. And so they sent me out on commercials. I never got a commercial. I kept saying to my agent, send me out some movies. I want to do a movie. I don't want to bite a hamburger. I don't really care, and I had this sort of attitude where, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but at the time I was sort of like, all right, can we get this over with? Because I got to get back to writing this song I was writing. I just didn't know that it was that important. It just felt like,
you never do if it helps. You never know when it's important.
I got to drive over the hill right now. It's traffic. What are you kidding me?
So traffic in LA. Yeah.
When I got my first movie called Hot Moves, which I mentioned the last time I was on here. And I remember I showed up to the interview and I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention to the script or anything. And I just showed up. I had my hair, slicked back, or I just looked really like I would trying, like if I were going out at night or something, trying to look cool. And the part was for a totally nerdy guy. And, so when I got there, they were like, yeah, we like what you're doing. Can you go in the bathroom and mess up your hair and put these glasses on and wear these funky socks and put this on? And I'm like, ugh. I mean, I should have showed up to the interview like that if I were serious, but I didn't. And so my experience with acting was sort of a distraction. But then after Karate Kid, I was like, wow, I can actually book these roles. I'm getting parts. Maybe I should take this seriously. And that's when it stopped. When I took it seriously.
Wow.
Funny how that works, right?
So interesting.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
It's so weird. We see that pop up over and over again. Now, Chris, if you don't mind, before we jump to the chat, because I do want to jump to the chat, but if you don't mind.
Oh, you've been itching for this, man. Take it away.
For this chat. I mean, look. So here's the thing. I haven't finished the book yet of Dune. Not
Which
yet.
one? The first one?
Just the first one right now, because that's the only one that's getting that right now. Don't worry. I plan on getting fully into the Dune lore if this goes. But walk us through, because I've seen the original. I believe it's the theatrical cut was like hour 40. Hour 45 was like the theatrical cut for David Lynch's original Dune, which is already too short as far as adapting that book, because I read just the
You'd
first.
have to spend a week watching that to get it all.
I read the first third of that book, just the first third, right from the beginning up until the initial betrayal by the Harkonnens and the death.
You still have this much energy?
I still have
That's incredible.
Oh my god! I'm pretty sure I have ADD. That's why. But I'm just like, but put it this way, I finished the first third. I'm like, I didn't take a break. That was too much right now.
It gripped you.
Yeah. I really did. But I mean, so walk us through, so obviously you got to see the original David Lynch movie in theaters, and then you see the trailer for the Denis Villeneuve movie, which again, like every single other Denis Villeneuve trailer and movie that's come out, looks incredible. It just looks gorgeous, and just the amount of kind of visual imagery that goes into capturing the image of Frank Herbert's original vision with it. Just walk me through your thought process right there.
You mean on the trailer?
Yeah, on the trailer, just everything involved, and kind of your history with it.
I cannot wait to see it.
Yeah, it's
first of all, I got a feeling that this guy is going to do it.
Yeah,
he's going to do it right. Look, I keep hitting my microphone. Sorry, guys.
All good.
Yeah, man, because this is not an easy movie to make.
No, not at all.
Because we have to give some context here, because maybe not some of the people that are watching are not paying. Maybe they don't pay attention to this. But Dune is Dune's not really like in Star Wars. There's sort of this one thread that runs through it. That's not Dune. Dune is I don't know if you even know this, but Dune is set in 10,000 years from now.
Right.
And there's in some of the books of Dune, they actually talk about they're actually humans from Earth. They don't talk about that in the movies, but the people on Earth have destroyed Earth. Earth doesn't even exist. And they have gone out into the universe and created different worlds. And so 10,000 years later is where we start the story.
Wow. That's actually, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so what's important to understand about this is that Frank Herbert created not just the world in which Dune, Arrakis, and all the spice comes from and all that, but he's created an entire cultures from the different planets, Atreides and all these different planets. And these cultures not only have storylines and their own histories, they have their own damn languages. They have their own religion.
It was doing like Dothraki, Klingon, and like all that was covered all in this book, like before any of those others became like
this predates Star Trek.
It predates Star Trek by a full like 2 years.
Okay, because Klingon came to mind when you had said that.
It predates Star Trek by a full 2 years.
No, but don't go there. Don't go Klingon, because that's not deep enough. No.
Okay.
What we're talking about here is somebody that actually, I don't know if he was smoking a lot of really good something.
Probably.
This guy has created this freaking author who's amazing. This Frank Herbert. He created worlds. He didn't create just the surface. Let's create this funny little language so people can kind of pretend that there's. He created the language and the culture and why it sounds the way it sounds and how it works. And if you don't read the books, you don't get that context.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, you're literally dumped into a world that is truly foreign.
Yeah.
Like has a very rich history, and he goes into extreme detail on the history of this stuff, and that's why the books are so long and so enthralling.
Like Chris, just to put this in perspective, like I said, I only read the first third of the first Dune book, and already from that first third, I'm already getting like origins about planets, about species with their own languages before we even get into the central conflict. That's how in depth this shit is. So needless to say. And again, I'm just talking about the David Lynch movie right now. 1 hour, 40-minute long movie is not going to be enough to cover that much source material. Forgetting all the other problems with that David Lynch movie, personally, I don't necessarily. They're going
to follow Duke Atreides, and they're going to follow that lineage, and they're going to follow the Muad'Dib kind of theme. Which is again sort of like the Force in a way,
like when I heard the Muad'Dib, I'm like, oh, that sounds a little bit like the Chosen One that'll bring balance to the Force, kind of. The whole frame of prophecy and everything, just a little bit there. But
it's not really about that. It's about self-struggle. It's about self-control. It's about, again, going back and how to learn your craft.
Yes.
It's really probably, these writers, they're probably struggling, artists that are trying to come to terms with this, with their ability to create.
Existentialism that has been slowly building, kind of.
Yeah.
It's so funny because, like, the thing that I got instantaneously, like, when I read those first couple of chapters, and it's just Paul at the box, asking, the Reverend Mother, what's in the box, and him having to put it in there. It's like, like that automatically set up is like, I'm like, okay, I've seen this. This is Luke's picking up the lightsaber for the first time, but at the same time, this feels like it's got a lot more like just personal hardship involved, and especially when you look at what Paul has to go through for that first book alone.
I can't speak to what the new director is going to do. How it's going to, I don't know how deep he's going to go. My hunch is this, and this is just a hunch, and I may sound cynical, but I don't believe that he can accurately do what he could capably do if he had a series.
Right.
Or like a Cobra Kai where you have years to expand. If it's just a 2-hour movie, you're going to have to take the basic themes and try to homogenize them and boil them down to the basic elements so people can get entertained from that and buy a ticket,
Right.
So to speak.
Well, totally.
You have to be prepared for that, is my point.
No, you're absolutely right. But there were 3 points.
Don't go in to this thinking this guy is going to blow your mind.
Right.
He will blow your mind in terms of
from a visual standpoint,
and a visual and audio. All that's going to be mind blowing.
Yes.
But he's got to follow that because he has a 2-hour parameter. I mean, there's no way around it.
Well, it's interesting because I wanted to bring up 3 different points to kind of, add to that, for lack of a better word. Number one, this movie right now that we're getting, the movie that is just called Dune, is not going to be an adaptation of the entire book. They said that right now it's only going to be covering the first half, which I thought was impressive first and foremost. Secondly, the thing that I wanted to bring up is, did you watch the most recent Blade Runner movie that came out, Blade Runner 2049?
No, I've been meaning to, because you know what, Blade Runner is my favorite movie, but it hasn't come to Prime yet. It hasn't come to Netflix yet.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I've just been lazy.
Right. So the first thing the thing that I'll bring up right now is the director who's doing this new Dune movie. His name is Denis Villeneuve. He did the last Blade Runner movie. A couple of the movies he did before that, were Prisoners, Enemy, and Sicario and Arrival, all of which were massively critically acclaimed overall. And it's funny because the Blade Runner 2049, when I watched it the first time, I wasn't a big fan because I was comparing. I just had the original Blade Runner in my mind. I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter how pretty and how gorgeous this looks visually, there's no way it's going to top the first one. But then when it's funny because I actually revisited the movie a couple of months ago. And when I watched it the second time, I had enough of a distance from the first movie where I was able to enjoy it for what it is. But in addition to that, I was also able to notice where I was like, wow, this is kind of taking all of the, for lack of a better word, unanswered questions, if any, that were left from the first movie and kind of really playing around with them in a way that I didn't think was possible. And I'm just wondering if he's going to be able to do this with the Dune project, especially if, from what it looked like I said, pre-COVID, obviously post-COVID, now who knows, but like pre-COVID, I think the idea might have been to make this like a series of movies perchance, which to me would have been absolutely enthralling. That would have been insane. And like a series of movies, like Denny, the thing about this director is that this director is like the last director that could get like these tremendous budgets. Like you saw what this trailer looks like. He gets these tremendous budgets for these really kind of properties that don't seem to apply themselves to that. You know, like he's not like a Christopher Nolan. He's not like doing like an Inception or a Tenet with something that's like blaring loud.
Take a risk on him.
Right. Like he's not blaring loud Hans Zimmer score in your face. He's not like making every second make it's like, oh, they gotta beat this. Exactly. It's a lot more subdued. It's these lot more like what's it called, like down to earth, really like thought-provoking ideas with these tremendous budgets.
He's very Kubrick-esque.
Yes, exactly. And it's one of the things that's always fascinated me about him as a filmmaker is that he's able to kind of get away with that stuff in the modern day blockbuster climate. And so with all of that being said, I'm just wondering like if that kind of affects your decision kind of going into this new movie at all.
Well, you're talking about Dune again, right?
Yeah, Dune, of course.
Well, the new Dune, because you mentioned Blade Runner, so I didn't want to confuse. I'm going in with a little bit of understanding because I've read the books and I kind of like this series of books that, I don't think anybody's capable of doing it because it's not something that was ever designed to be a movie. It's being adapted. And so this adaptation may just be great. I don't know, but I'm going in with the understanding that it's an adaptation and, it is what it is. I don't know. He's going to probably focus on that. I hope. I mean, everybody focuses on the same thing that David Lynch did with the war on Arrakis and that whole with the Fremen and that there's so much more to that movie that could be made into another movie.
Yep.
But I it'd be interesting to see if he will pull those elements into it.
Yeah, like just the stuff with the Mentats and everything. Like I feel like there was a whole lineage with the Harkonnens that like we just barely had to get into.
You have to remember the spice guys. The I forgot the name of them.
Oh man,
the ones that travel through that go into a trance and can bridge time.
Are those the Mentats, or am I thinking of something else?
No, Mentats are the computational guys.
That's right. Oh my God! What? Oh, anyway, I know what you're talking about.
They don't look human anymore.
You're right. You're right. Oh my God, I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, for some reason, someone will probably tell us. I can't remember either for some darn reason. But I'm just trying to make a point. These factions of what used to be humans, and this is one of the points he makes in the books, and this is why I like it because I love science, and so it's very scientific in the sense that as we branched out. I say we, meaning the Earthlings, as they branched out into the universe, different planets had different atmospheres, different daylight times, different times around their sun. It affected the way humans evolved. And so some of them look different for that reason. And some of them developed skills that were more mental rather than physical. So they lost their limbs over now. What's unrealistic is that kind of evolution would take millions of years,
right?
Not 10,000.
Not thousands.
But we'll give the guy a little bit of space on that. But so the guys that are able to bring the whole reason that the point of the movie is the fact that the spice is the only substance that can put them into this weird trance that allows them to basically go into hyperspace and move things quickly among the planets. Otherwise, the way the story is told is that originally all those planets were separated, and segregated from each other because of the distance. So people didn't know that Earth existed or that planet over there existed. They had to kind of refine each other. Then they had the big war that they talk about, the Belligerent War. Do you remember when?
I think like I said, I've only read the first book, so I have so much Dune lineage and war that I have to get into. But
correct me, Belligerent War or something like that. They refer to that, and then they refer to it in the first 30 pages. So I mean, maybe you should go back and check that out.
Probably
because the reason why that's important is because that war, they were trying to reunite everybody. And no one was able to do that, and so they fought, and then they, blah blah blah. So this is now 10,000 years later, and the only thing that's holding the union of planets together is spice, because it's their only way that they can communicate to get to those worlds in your lifetime. You can go instantly, because these what were used to be humans, they're still human. They don't look like humans because all they are is a big brain now. And they go into this, they use the spice, they go into this thing, and they can transport things through like a wormhole. They can open up a wormhole or whatever. So I lost my point of this whole thing, but I remember what it was. It's the fact that there are so many awesome storylines that are also really worth exploring, but I don't think we're going to see them.
Yeah. And that's the
And
trick.
I don't understand that.
Man, you're honestly making me jealous now, because here's the thing. As much as I'm looking forward to this movie now, I'm just thinking like, man, how much better would this have been as a series? Now, granted, like I said, we probably wouldn't get this to the scale that we're having this now if it were a series, but still, like...
Well, remember the Battlestar Galactica reboot?
Yes, the 04 to 09 one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the...
I actually didn't think I was going to like it, and I ended up falling in love with it. I ended up just kept watching it and watching it. It kind of... And I knew I kind of felt silly, because I had this, I had this memory of this terrible sci-fi series that was in the 70s when I was a kid. I mean, I was like 8 years old, and it was just horrible. And then I finally decided to check it out, and then I just couldn't put it down. If they could do something like that with Dune, I'd be so on board with that.
Which is funny because they tried to do that with the sci-fi show in the early 2000s, and that just wasn't well received either. It's funny because it feels like the Dune property, weirdly enough, I compare it to the Tron property in the sense of where it's a property that should have these incredible legs with this deep lore and all these different crazy sub spin-offs that you could have, and it just for whatever reason just hasn't caught on yet.
Yeah, I think the reason for that is that there are so many, it is so massive and so deep that, at the moment, the only way you're going to appreciate it is if you dive into the books, which nobody's going to do.
Exactly. So, it's the same problem that Game of Thrones had, where Game of Thrones, for the first couple of seasons, everyone was like, oh, we read the books. And it's like, yeah, guess what? The majority of people who watch the show are not reading the books.
You could, the Lord of the Rings movies too.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been around since the 50s. 60s, 60s.
The original Ralph Bakshi movie.
Yeah. And they did remake those. I mean, they did make them in I think there was a series in England that was on, or some type of movie was made out of it. That's folklore that they've had around for years. That whole story, the Lord of the Rings story. And they managed to make such an epic series out of that, of movies. And I'm sure, and I didn't read those books, but I'm sure they are really deep. They go really deep too. So I mean, it can be done with the right group of people and the right amount of money and patience. It's just a question of whether there's the will to do it.
Yep. Look, there is a
Great
will.
property,
There is a will. There's a way. And unfortunately, I used the bathroom one last time. I apologize in advance for my extremely tiny bladder. But Chris, in the meantime, if you want, take us to the chat.
That's exactly what I was going to do, Dom. Don't worry about it. Guys, thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Matt. Shout out to you for hanging out with us and showing us your support. It really does mean a lot, man. It's been great to get to know you, and look forward to more collaborating with your channel. Thank you. We have a new face in the chat. Fotch Monster Cinema. I really don't know how to say that, but what I really do know is
Monster.
There you go. Facey Monster.
Maybe.
Facey Monster. Thank you, man. Appreciate you being here. Man or whatever, woman, doesn't matter. We just appreciate you hanging out. I was in a band. That's my slang. That's how I talk. It's kind of a musician thing. Maybe it's a bad musician habit. But Jaren, thanks for hanging, man. Also, always appreciate it. Congrats on reaching your milestone recently. I think you just hit 800. That's insane, man.
Wow.
Keep up the good work. We love this community. We love hanging out with you guys. Guys, we're about to move into the Q&A portion of the show. So if you have your questions, drop them in the chat. Jeff, before we sort of move into this, is there any last statements in regards to anything we've been speaking about tonight that you might want to get out before we sort of jump into some more silly, zany questions?
Not necessarily. We touched on a lot of things. I mean, I welcome any music questions for sure, but yeah, there's some really good connections between Survivor and Karate Kid that we could talk about that maybe people don't know, so that might be something that if someone's interested in hearing more about that, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly am. I'd say just share it, man. I mean, I've wanted to know for a while, who were some of your favorite influences, who inspires you as a musician, like who?
Well, that's a different subject, but what I could tell you is, my upbringing as a musician is a little different in the sense that I didn't follow a particular artist or band and go, I want to be that guy, I want to do that. I just wanted to get up and sing, and write. And so I wrote songs, but I ended up falling in love with songwriters, man, really good songwriters. So I didn't really it wasn't like I was a big fan of just Queen or Styx or Survivor or somebody like that. I pick and choose the songs I like. So you could just point to a particular day and go, well, that song is amazing. I want to learn that song. I want to check it out. And it might lead me to learning more about the artist, but I was really more of a song guy. I kind of was very influenced by great songwriters. Anyone that wrote a great song, Elton John, Billy Joel, Paul Simon,
for sure,
Jackson Brown.
Totally. Yeah, those are all.
Yeah, they're all amazing people, and the
Yeah.
guys that can sing those songs. I mentioned before, Paul Rogers and Lou Gramm and Steve Perry, and you put those two together. And
it was funny you brought up Steve Perry, because there was a really awesome moment where I believe it was Open Arms by Journey in the new season of Karate Kid really informed what was happening on screen. It was a very great job of using the time period of yesteryear that inspire our characters to sort of inform their actions. So when you said that earlier, I didn't want to kill the flow of conversation, but hey, it came back around. So
yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah. There's a lot of great music in that soundtrack, including Survivor, and that's the connection. Survivor did Moment of Truth, which was used in the trailer for the movie. And remember the song Moment of Truth. In fact, it was even no one knew what the name of the movie was going to be. Everyone knew it was called Karate Kid, but there was a lot of sort of talk and people thinking that's not a good title, but that's what they went with. Moment of Truth was thrown around and some other things, but so yeah, and on the soundtrack itself, there's just it's just like a soundtrack of the 80s.
Yeah.
It's just some great stuff.
So it makes it just an incredible soundtrack in general.
Yeah.
And totally. Yeah, again, that showed us so many things to inform what's happening on screen as well. Oh, okay. We just got an interesting chat.
That I was. That just made me laugh. Oh
Myth,
my God.
The homie Myth chiming in, saying that Three Ninjas is the greatest karate movie ever made. Changed my mind. I can't.
I don't know about that.
I can't. Myth normally has some hot takes on films and whatnot.
I mean, I'm a little bit preferential to Big Trouble in Little China, but still. I don't know if you would count that as a karate movie per se, but so it does have a lot of martial arts in it.
So we'll start taking
Kung Fu fighting a Chinese song. So, it's the same thing.
There you go.
Right. Totally. So we'll start taking some questions from the chat here. Stranger Boy has asked all of us, David Fincher or Quentin Tarantino?
Tarantino, no question. I love Fincher, but like, there's no one like Tarantino.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Same. Just the way he can tell a story, the way he just writes the scripts, and they
It's
really
raw.
shouldn't exactly, and they shouldn't make any sense. But the way that it all always just somehow comes together is it's mind blowing.
He has a style that nobody has ever been able to
Yeah.
duplicate. It's really his own.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
It's it's just like
nobody
when
writes
he
like
came
that.
onto the scene with dogs, like just I mean, like Jeff, do you know the Inception story behind like how Tony Scott ended up directing True Romance?
No.
So this is one of the greatest stories I've ever heard. So Quentin is coming up right throughout Hollywood, throughout the late 80s and beginning of the 90s, right? He's friends with Lawrence Bender. That's the producer that kind of got him started. Lawrence Bender introduced him to Harvey Keitel, and that's how he's able to get a lot of the financing for dogs. And it ends up like he's putting around the two scripts at the time, right? Dogs and True Romance at the same time. And Tony Scott gets a hold of both of them. And Tony Scott says, I want to do Reservoir Dogs. This is like one of the best scripts I've ever had. And keeping in mind that Tony Scott, I think, had just directed. He was just coming off of Revenge and Last Boy Scout. Days of Thunder and Last Boy Scout, right? Keep that in mind. That's where Tony Scott was in the zeitgeist right now, after he'd already done Top Gun and Beverly Hills Cop 2 in the late 80s. And so he gets both those scripts. And he's like, I want to do Dogs. And they're like, oh, well, Quentin's already directed that one. He's like, okay, what's the other one, True Romance? Okay, I'll do that. And that's how Tony Scott ended up directing True Romance. Keeping in mind the fact that Quentin was already like the biggest Tony Scott fan on the planet at the time. So that's... Like, well, I mean, you guys are music guys, so you compare that as far as like music terminology goes, but like, damn,
that's crazy. Yeah, a lot of weird shit. I mean, with Rocky, they loved the script. They called Stallone in and said, "Hey, we want to do your script." He's like, well, "That's great, but I got to act in it and I want to direct it." And I'm like,
"How about that?"
Yeah, that's
it was not crazy.
Yeah,
he
the least.
He crushed that one. We're getting some food questions, guys. Stranger Boy wants to know Italian, Mexican, or Chinese food.
Depends on the day.
Depends who I'm with and what time.
Yeah, I think that pretty much goes for me as well. They're all great, like all honestly. Yeah, exactly. They're all great.
There isn't any of their cuisine I don't like. So
exactly. And then I get to,
let's put a first one on there. Smorgasbord.
He follows it up with favorite food. Is there something I guess you can go for any time of the day?
Pizza.
Okay.
Sushi.
Ooh.
Good sushi, not store.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say I'm like any other kind of that I thought I'm like, oh yeah, wait, there is store-bought sushi.
It's interesting. Since we brought up sushi for a second, sushi became really popular in the 80s. In America. And what's interesting is during the time I was in Karate Kid and all that stuff was going on, sushi was like, just certainly in LA was taking everybody by storm. I mean, there was like a rush for if you were a Japanese chef, you had to have a sushi place, and they were just popping up everywhere. Now they're on every corner too, but at that time, and I lived at that time, and I was in high school, and I would go to Yamashiro's or whatever I'd go, and I'd have sushi. And I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't taste like it tastes now. It was better then. The fish was less polluted. There was less people being able to, it's supply and demand. I mean, how many people are going to have a good tuna, And so and they were starting to figure out how to monetize it then. It's not just a trend, or is this thing going to really stick around? And so they were doing things to out chef each other. And
make that a term, out chef each other, please. Just make it like
that's bad though.
Twitter, do your thing. Make that a term.
On Iron Chef, they were out chefing each other. So anyhow,
that's true.
But the 80s, man, that was my experience of like that. Would my friends, we would I don't know, we'd go to the gym and then we'd go have sushi. That was like we were such 80 peoples, man. I don't know.
I already feel cheated that I grew up in the time I grew up in, although I do love certain things about it, but
I hate
that already doesn't make me feel upset.
I hate having been born in the ass crack end of the 90s.
Well, we back in those days, there was an epidemic too. I mean, there was AIDS.
Yeah, that's true.
No, we didn't have to be forced to close our businesses, but it did have a pretty bad effect on most of our sex lives. I'm telling you, try to get a date in the world of age back then.
Yeah.
When you meet a girl at a bar or whatever, and you want to hook up, and it's like, I don't know, that could be the last thing I ever do.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that was actually one thing that I heard on the Karate Kid Rewatchables podcast. But they're talking about like, oh man, the '80s, like all this free love, and it reminds you of a Hot Tub Time Machine quote where it's like, yeah, that's the '60s. You're like, that's the '60s, dipshit. But
I'm finally out of high school. And I got a few bucks in my pocket for the first time in my life.
Yep.
And now, and I can't get laid because it could kill me.
Yeah.
That's the conundrum.
Crazy thing to think about, right?
Yeah. I mean, it made for some awkward dates.
Yeah.
I tell you.
That's something that movies have just not touched on well enough. It's just the awkwardness of trying to date in the '80s.
Oh yeah,
true.
It wasn't like Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
No, not at all.
Because I wouldn't know that, honestly, unless you told me. So the interpersonal sort of non-televised interactions of like youth back then, I wouldn't know anything that Hollywood or a song hasn't informed me of.
Our parents were coming up from 50s, 60s, and maybe your older brother was the 70s or whatever. And those were all, by the time you got to the 70s, man, people were just getting laid. Like, you go to the corner for to buy some milk, you come back, pregnant or something.
Oh God.
Oh man.
I mean, that was sexual revolution in the 70s. But,
True.
The 80s, we were all like, we were ready to go. We were like, yeah, all right. So we're gonna do better than our parents. We're gonna have more sex. We're gonna. Can I say fuck? We're gonna.
Please do.
We're gonna fuck more than them. We're gonna fucking be great. It's gonna be amazing.
And it's gonna be awesome. And then
we go out the door, and then they say, "Okay, hold on, you could die."
Yeah,
and so
I can see that throws a wrench in it.
Right.
I mean, 1986. I remember the Challenger explosion. You look at me like you don't know what I'm talking about.
I know what that is. I know.
The space shuttle,
space station.
Exactly.
That was a very traumatic thing to watch on TV, because it's live broadcast, and the thing blows up. Crazy. I mean, that was like watching anything Trump's doing on TV.
Right. Yeah.
Imagine exploding every day in the 80s. That's what we're dealing with now. But then that was unheard of, and so you had that, and then you had AIDS, which was, at the time, it was kind of like COVID was, back in last January, where people weren't sure just how bad this thing was going to get. So people were really dying. I mean, AIDS was really killing a lot of people, and they weren't really sure exactly how. They knew it was sexually transmitted somehow, but they weren't sure, who, and it did seem to affect the gay population more than others, but it wasn't just the gay population that was affected. It was, anybody that you could possibly come in contact with could be a carrier. And so that was the first time we experienced that. And it had to be an 18-year-old and to be like, ready to rock, and then, have to go, oh shit.
Yeah.
And I also feel like that's a common misconception about that virus as well, that it could affect anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, it of course, here's an interesting side point, and I don't want to get off on this, but they haven't cured AIDS. There's no vaccine for AIDS, so I mean, you still don't want the damn thing.
Of course,
you now can live with it. I mean, they've learned you can take a cocktail of drugs that will alleviate it from turning into full blown AIDS, which will kill you. So there's that, and so you can probably live with it the way people live with asthma. A bad case of asthma or something, but I mean, maybe worse. But the point is that,
sure.
I don't know how we're going to assume we're going to cure COVID just, that quickly. We're going to have to learn to live with some things.
Yeah, I hear you.
Anyway, go back to the question. Sorry.
Yeah, totally. No, that's totally fine, man. It's whenever you go off on a tangent, Jeff, it's always a phenomenal ride. So don't ever feel bad about that. And also, I guess, guys, the chat just took a little bump here. Thank you guys for just joining us. And if you have a question for either myself, Dom, or our special guest, Jeffrey Bryan, of Survivor and of Karate Kid. Ask now. Now is your chance to ask a question, guys. With that being said, I didn't even answer the last question. For me, it would be halal. I could eat halal night, day, lunch, breakfast, dinner. It's so good. It's always so good. And I miss, my time in Brooklyn wasn't the greatest, but I did really enjoy experiencing all that different type of culture and just being thrust into like this epicenter of coming from what I call upstate New York, what Don begs to differ on me with. And just,
Somebody who lived in central New York, I can say, Chris, we are not upstate New York just because we're north of the city.
That's fine. I'm going to stick to my guns on that one. So
I'm going to stay out of this one.
Yeah, that is definitely a New York thing, much more so.
That not only does that food have a special place in my heart because of that, but it is just damn delicious. So yeah, halal would be specifically lamb over rice. It just
all right.
So good, man.
Definitely good choice.
The next question. Favorite episode of That 70s Show, Stranger Boys, is the Christmas episode of season 1, which is a pretty funny episode.
There's a couple things.
Yeah, what's your favorite? What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite moment episode? It might be hard to pick a specific. I've only watched the show once in its entirety. For me, though, is when they have the kegger in the pool, the drained pool, and they kind of get rolled up on, and it's just like they did a good job on that show of sort of showing how sometimes you want to grow up, but then kids drink too much and the party's not as fun as you thought because no one knows how to hold their liquor, and showing like really what happens when you're in high school. And I'm sure stuff that we've all gone through. So it felt very real for a silly sitcom.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man. I don't even know where to pick from. There's
I wasn't a big fan of that show, so I
Really? Okay. What was it about it that what about it? Yeah.
First of all, I'm not a sitcom guy.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't really watch TV, like sitcom type TV.
Mm-hmm.
Not interested. I think the last one I watched was Family Ties.
Wow.
Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Fair enough. Dom, do you have that 70s show moment? I really love the show.
I love the show. The problem is it's been so long since I've watched it for me to remember any specific episode. I'm like, I would have to go back and rewatch it because like the last I remember was watching the first couple of episodes of season 1, but there's so many good episodes. Like, I mean, the one where I will always remember the one where Kelso thought that he knocked up the girl and he tried to pick her up on a freaking bike. That one will always have a fun because Eric and Jackie
understood that character.
Yeah, the Kelso character.
Like that?
Yeah, right.
I never understood that.
That's just what Ashton Kutcher made his shtick, and then he would continue to do that shtick for the next like 20 or 30 years of his career, and then he tried to undo it with the butterfly effect, and it just didn't work. Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. I love the one episode from season 1 with The Rock, where The Rock is playing his own dad in that. I thought that was pretty cool as far as like.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Like I said, there was a lot of episodes. Any episode with Tommy Chong, weirdly enough, again, like Jeff, this should tell you how young we are. That was my introduction to Tommy Chong, was that show, before I even knew what Cheech and Chong was. So,
oh my God. Really?
yeah, that should tell you how young we are.
So, with that being said, I feel like we're sort of rounding the corner here, getting to the wind down section. But I mean, I would like to go out on a high note. And Jeff, I do not want to put you on the spot, but
put him on the spot.
I would love for you to play your favorite original song that you've written recent times, whatever, if you don't mind, and maybe tell us a little bit about why you chose to play that song.
I could do that.
Cool. Yeah, if you don't want to, that's totally fine, man. I don't want to put you on the spot. I know we're just chatting, and the voice might be.
No, I can play I can play something I've released recently on Spotify.
God, please do it, please.
Cool. Yeah, as long as there's no like label claiming it or something.
No, it'd be me.
Perfect.
Awesome.
And I
Sweet.
won't sue myself. At least I don't think I will. So see if this plays. I mean, I think you can hear it. Ready? This is a song called. You want me to play a song?
Here, yeah. Here, you know what? Is it a YouTube link? Because if you send me the YouTube link in the chat, I can actually screen share it and play the full 1080p quality audio.
It's not a YouTube link, but it is a Spotify link.
Spotify link. Gotcha.
From Spotify.
Let me.
I could pull it up on Spotify the same way.
Here,
Spotify is an app, which is the unfortunate part. But Spotify / Jeffrey Bryan, right?
Yeah. Actually, yeah. I can give you the link if you want. Here, I'll give you this one. Hold on.
Perfect.
How do I do that?
Yeah, man, because I was looking up your covers on your YouTube channel. You did a couple Jeff Lynne songs that I really enjoyed, and just think the people. You've been on the show a few times now. I think it's time the people hear your music.
How do I share this? Can I just put it in the chat?
You just put it in the chat, and I'll take care of the rest.
Copy and paste it into the chat. Yeah.
There it is.
Perfect. Let's see
if it lets you screen share it.
It should. I do pay for the service.
It should just echo what's on your screen, right?
Great. I'm going to be able to get it.
This is something I recorded from this room that you're seeing.
Hang on. I'm almost there.
Almost there.
All right. Tell me if this works, guys. Let's get... Oh, they don't let you share audio from Spotify.
Wow, that should tell you something.
Would you...
well, okay. How else could I do that? Oh, I know what I could do. While we're talking, I can put it... I'll give you a Dropbox link.
Thanks for hanging, Q. Always appreciate it, man. Q, we hope to have you on the channel at some point again soon.
Can I give you a Dropbox link?
That'd be absolutely perfect.
Okay. One moment. Let me see.
Now, would it be possible to get a live performance? Or
I was about to say, that's what I thought was going to happen.
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that.
Oh, don't worry about that then. Don't worry about that.
I did a show last night. I'm a little hoarse.
Okay.
I did a show. I did a big. Hold on. Let me get the link here. I can do that, but you are putting me on the spot here. Hold on a second.
Yeah, told you we were going to.
Sorry about that. Yeah, but this is something that we sometimes do to our guests. Maybe it's just who we are. We like to be spontaneous and whatnot.
It makes it more fun.
In the meantime, I guess while you do that, since we did say that I might play something in the beginning, let me go grab my acoustic.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Chris, a little bit of a jam. Yeah, I'll be right back as well myself.
Not just your acoustic, but also just like the friggin'.
Don't look at that. That's wrong. I don't know why that didn't copy. Hold on.
No worries, no worries. Dom, you take the reins for a second. Talk to the chat.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm seeing a couple of funny comments right here that I enjoy. I enjoy the Three Ninjas comment. Fun fact about Three Ninjas: I never actually watched the movie. I only what's it called? All right, so Jeff, is this the one, or you got to send the new one?
No, that's it. It's the Dropbox thing. I actually had the Spotify one still in my clipboard.
Got it. All right, so let's see. All right. Share screen. All right, so let's see if this works. Can you hear that, Jeff?
Well, I hear it. Not really.
Oh man,
I'm hearing it from your headphones. I can hear it's bleeding through your microphone.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, it should be going through the microphone directly. I wonder why that's not doing it. It might just be through my software because my cam outset.
Let me try it.
Yeah, you try it on your end.
Because I've got it going through my board here.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be fine. I can play the actual file too.
Yeah, I would say do that probably then. Would be our best bet.
Here we go. Masters.
Yeah, just make sure the audio is playing out through StreamYard. That's the key.
Can you hear that?
No, I don't hear anything.
Okay. You will. Hold on. Wait. How am I going to do that? Didn't know you were going to do this.
Yeah. Like I said, putting you on the spot right here.
Oh, I see. What if I did that? Sir? All right, hold on.
We're almost there, people. We're getting there. This is the stuff that you don't see whenever you see live performances.
You don't like how the sausage is made.
Exactly. They get out of the factory.
Exactly.
I upgraded on that saying there a little bit.
You know what? You make it made sense.
Yeah.
'Cause,
It's like, this video I saw online. It's like, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
why I'm hearing that and I can see it.
Yeah, that's odd.
Here, just I don't really know why you're not hearing that. It's going.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
hearing
weird.
it. It's going.
Yeah, I'm
I
still
feel
not
it.
hearing it, so that's weird. It might be playing through your speakers only. It might just have to do with like your speakers in general. Like, you know what it is? It might be because StreamYard is only picking up the software that your microphone is plugged into, or the hardware. Sorry,
I know. Yeah, I think you're right because it doesn't have permissions to go.
Exactly. It doesn't have the permit. And StreamYard is really fickle that way as far as like picking up on like multiple audio sources at once.
What about that?
Nope, still can't hear anything.
Okay, hold on.
I can do a share screen option though if that Dropbox link you sent in the chat is the one. Sure.
No, but that's the thing. I tried through my source and it just sounded like it was bleeding through my headphones. So I don't know if it would be the same on your end.
Bummer. Well, I guess more the reason, not that we already didn't want to, but to have you back on the show.
It's not going to pick up from. Why don't you just use the link I gave you?
Yeah, Chris, try the link. It's in the private chat.
Right now. This should work.
I started listening to it for a couple seconds, and I'm like, "Oh man, we can't leave the show without playing this. This sounds too good."
Yeah,
you're very kind, Dom.
Oh, come on.
Cool. I think it's gonna work. Let's see what we think. How this goes. Let me make sure it doesn't clip. Can we hear it?
I hear it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Cool. Hell yeah, guys. Ashore by Jeffrey Bryan.
Go ashore. Yeah.
I've been drifting on an endless sea, always going where the waves take me. Against the tide, why is it I never break free? Had a dream about finding that land beyond my sight. I never understand why the waves are too high for me to see. When will I get to go ashore? 'Cause I cannot swim anymore. I can't swim no more. I can't swim to go ashore. I've been waiting for a long, long time. Always searching, always staying in line. But now I'm burned and the wind is getting the best of me. So baby, please look me in the eye. You gotta tell me, am I losing my mind? I don't know which way to turn, and it all looks the same from here. When will I get to go ashore? 'Cause I cannot swim anymore. I can't swim no more. I can't swim to go ashore. Tell you now, if it were up to me, I'd cash it all in and sail the sea. I'd stay afloat, let the waves decide what they will be. When will I get to go
Damn. Phenomenal, dude.
Right. Nice.
That is
Nice.
It's not. Appreciate that.
You know
Thank
what it sounded like? It automatically sounded. I was already thrown back to those like 80s music videos that I would see. I'm automatically thrown back to that. So like already props to that.
It's got a 70s vibe to it, with the roads and
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
It had like a very, obviously like I mean, it said the song, but like a very surfer vibe to it. So I like that.
To me, it benefits from the modern production. You know, that piano swell into the last chorus, the reverse reverb. I mean, that was awesome. Totally fitting. I really love the guitar solo, man. Do you listen to Santana? I felt a little.
Yeah, a lot of Santana vibes there.
Well, I got my. Oh, it's not up there right now. I got my 73 Les Paul, but right now it's an Ovation back there.
Right. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So Chris, Jeff got to show
hold on,
off.
real quick. Did you that track? Did you record every instrument yourself?
Yeah, except the drums. A friend of mine came over and played the drums.
Totally. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm no drummer.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. You recorded that yourself too.
Yeah, I recorded. I played everything myself.
Phenomenal. So
all right, we get it. We get it. Show
and
off.
where is that available? Just so we can point the people in the right direction. Spotify, Jeffrey Bryan, YouTube, Jeffrey Bryan Music, right?
Jeffrey Bryan Music. I'm sorry.
No, that was beautiful, man.
JeffreyBryanMusic.com. Jeffrey JeffreyBryan Music.
Perfect. And Jeff, while we're at it, because I figure I play this song and we say our goodbyes. And thanks, Tom.
Speaker.
You got it.
And we let everyone go and have a good night here. But before we head out, Jeff, where can the people find you, keep up to date with all that it is you do, and just keep in touch with what you're up to on a day-to-day?
The best thing to do would be to go to my website, which is JeffreyBryanMusic.com, which we just explained. And then, hit me up on my Facebook page. And, there's not, I don't always make everything there public, so you'd have to friend me, but my website's the best place because it's got everything.
JeffreyBryanMusic.com, people. Oh man, Jeff, thank you again for being on. It was an absolute blast. Love having you on.
I could talk all night to you guys.
We know. It's
we love you, man.
There's so few people who can usually. There's usually so few people that can keep up with us as far as how much we usually like to talk. So the fact that you can do that and top us, I love that. And again, you're welcome back anytime. Please come back later on in the year. And to wrap us up, Chris, serenade the people, if you will.
Take us out.
Before we do that, thank you guys again. 200 subscribers is it's something that really means a lot to me.
We gained more subscribers in the last hour alone. So
amazing.
They don't ask a lot of questions.
No.
Yeah,
usually they ask more. Tonight was an unnaturally dead night, but usually they ask more.
We appreciate them nonetheless. The numbers were there watching, but hey, it's not going to ask you to, it's interesting times, so we just appreciate you coming by and taking your mind off of it all with us. We really do. It does mean the world to us. We do this because we love it, and we love you. And Jeff, we love you as well. Thank you for hanging. Stay safe out there in California. Man. Always appreciate it, man. And so I'm talking about it a lot. I'm going to be releasing a segment with music. So this is kind of why talking about the meaning behind music and film and how it actually enhances the story and stuff. So I guess you guys need a proof of concept, right? Show you guys I can finally play after talking about it so much. So I hope you guys enjoy.
Year and a half. Let's go.
This is it's a shorter song, but I think it's the one I chose to play because while it does have sort of an aggressive meaning, it's also the song's called High and Dry, and while I was left high and dry, I think
Radiohead.
Hell yeah!
I do love Radiohead. While I have been left high and dry when I wrote the song, I think what I learned from writing this song is that the negative energy I put in this track at the time, the young angst I wrote the song a few years ago, you gotta let that stuff go. You gotta let that stuff go. And it's okay to have these kind of songs. Billy Joel talks about how, Captain Jack, he's not too fond of looking back on it, but it was important to him that he wrote it. And so in these types of times, it's okay to be angry as long as you channel it into art or something positive. And that's kind of why I wanted to play this song out tonight, just so everyone can get some positivity going. So, Jeff, thanks again for hanging. Hope you guys can hear me all right. This is quite literally live broadcasting. And guys, stay safe.
Happy
New Year as well. All right. It's in tune enough.
Go.
Do you still think of me from time to time? 'Cause I'll admit you cross my mind, and I know that ship has sailed. But still I wonder how you're making out, if he's gone or still around, and I pray someday that fails. Somewhere along the line I stopped believing, 'cause the old me's dead and gone. Now it's my chance to say what I've been thinking. You're all so fucking wrong. You'll leave me high and dry, just like the rest. It's quite alright, I must confess that I'm used to this by now. And if you've heard the talk, you figured out that I'm the goddamn worst in town. So please buy into them. Whoa, I swear we've got a right to our opinions, but in time they'll find your flaws. So here's my chance to say what I've been thinking. You are all so wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. You
Wow,
changed the
bro.
last words of those last couple lyrics, but still great. Oh
thank you,
man,
guys.
dude, that was a
Nice.
throwback to 2017 right there.
Yeah, man. Just, channel your anger in positive ways, guys. Have a great night, Jeff. Thank you again
Yes.
for joining us. This has
Kinda
been the
great.
200 subscriber celebration of Talkin TV podcast, and I wouldn't have it go any other way. Any last
Follow
words,
us on
Tom, for the
Facebook
people?
and Instagram at Talkin TV Podcast. And people, in Jeff's case, but also, again, thank you, Jeff, for being here.
Yes.
Listen to more fucking music and watch more fucking movies and TV. As always, we'll see you guys next time.
Woo!